Hey guys, tonight we're not stepping into a cozy Thanksgiving painting or the tidy myths you learnt in school. We're stepping into the first winter of colonial America season so brutal that half the settlers didn't live to see spring. Imagine sitting down for dinner and finding nothing but a boiled leather shoe on your plate. Bitter, rubbery, barely chewable, but you gnaw at it anyway, because hunger is louder than dignity. Would you last a night in that silence, a silence where the dark scratches at your door, and every creak of wood sounds like something hungry waiting outside, and the worst part, it isn't just the hunger. Something else was circling, something that settlers swore could steal whole families without leaving a single footprint in the snow. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little time machine reaches. Now ease dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the it's the sound of your stomach gnawing on itself, loud enough to drown out the muffled coughs in the corner. The straw you've been sleeping on is wet again. You can feel the damp seeping through the rough cloth, clinging to your skin like an unwelcome second layer. When you shift your weight, the cabin's wooden boards groan along with your bones, the sound dry and brittle as if both of you might splinter if pushed too hard. Breath curls white in front of your face. It swirls like smoke, but there's no fire here, only the illusion of one, painted in mist. Every exhale is visible proof of how fragile you are. You rub your hands together, hoping for friction, but your fingers are swollen and clumsy, too stiff to spark even the tiniest ember of warmth. Your knuckles are cracked, and a thin line of blood darkens against the pale skin. It stings, but the sting at least reminds you you're not frozen all the way through. The smell of the room is heavy. It's layers of mildew, unwashed wool, stale smoke, and the faint sourness of human bodies pressed too close for too long. You try not to breathe deeply, though shallow breaths only make the air sharper, metallic, like chewing on iron nails. Somewhere behind you, a child coughs a gendry, rasping, a sound that almost imitates wind in the rafters. You can't tell if that voice is slipping away or clinging on. Either way, you don't want to know. You push yourself upright, fighting the protest of joints that don't feel like yours anymore. Knees ache, spine pops, and when you reach for the wall to steady yourself, the logs are icy. They're not smooth like finished boards. They're rough, flaking, shedding splinters into your palm. The walls don't hold heat. They don't hold hope. They feel like a cage built too fast, meant to shelter you, but now serving as a wooden coffin propped upright in the dirt. You move toward the door. Each step on the warped floorboards reminds you of just how thin the barrier is between you and the frozen mud outside. You place your hand on the latch. For a moment, you imagine it refusing to move, trapping you in with the coughs and the mildew until you fade like the others. The latch does resist. It's stiff, brittle, iced over. When it finally gives, the sound is a crack like a bone breaking. And then the door yawns open with a groan so human you glance back over your shoulder to see if anyone else heard it. Cold air slams into you instantly, the kind that carries weight. It doesn't brush your skin, it punches, it slides down your throat like glass shards, makes your eyes water, makes your ears sting. Outside, the snow isn't soft, storybook white. It's grey, crusted, streaked with ash and dirt. The ground sucks at your boots, sucking them down into a slush that freezes your toes within seconds. Already, your body starts to tremble, not the gentle kind of shiver that can be shrugged off, but the violent, teeth-clacking rhythm of muscles trying to keep the blood from surrendering. You look around. Cabins huddle together, crooked, bent as if bowing to the cold. Their roofs sag under layers of frost. Smoke leaks from chimneys in thin, reluctant streams. You know those fires aren't strong. Green wood doesn't burn well. It hisses and smokes, coughing more than warming. Each puff of smoke escaping is warmth wasted, rising into the grey sky instead of staying in fragile bones. Your eyes land on a patch of ground beyond the cabins. Men are bent low there, tools striking against earth that doesn't want to give. At first you think planting. Then you remember the season. This is January. Nothing is planted now. What's being dug isn't a garden. It's a grave. The thought hits hard, harder than the cold, and you flinch as if the wind carried it straight into your chest. You glance down at your own hands, red and raw. Will they be the ones to dig, or will they be the ones buried? The question lingers longer than you want it to. Hunger interrupts, folding you in half. The pain isn't sharp anymore. It's dull, deep, the constant gnawing of emptiness that has made a home in your belly. It roars louder than wolves, and you almost laugh because you've heard stories settlers boiling leather shoes, scraping bark, chewing starch out of roots bitter enough to sicken them. You wonder if it came to that, if all that stood between you and death was the sole of a boot. Would you eat it? Would you complain about the taste? Or would you just be glad to have something to chew? It's absurd, and yet it feels too close. You think of people now, grumbling when the Wi-Fi flickers, or when the coffee shop runs out of oat milk. That thought almost makes you smile, though your lips crack at the attempt. If only hunger here could be fixed by a menu. Someone calls your name. It drifts weakly through the morning air, carried on a cough. You turn and see faces at the other cabins, pale, hollowed, cheeks caved in. They're not staring at you exactly, but through you, like they can already see the outline of your absence. You wave without thinking, though your arm feels like lifting stone. The gesture is clumsy, half-hearted. Their faces don't change. You force yourself to step further from the cabin. Each step is a bargain, warmth for distance, breath for movement. The cold crawls deeper, not just on the surface, but inward, threading into your muscles, into thought, into bone. It becomes part of you, until you can tell whether you're moving away from the cabin or into it forever. Do you ever wonder how long you'd last one night too? Would you fight for every breath, or give in to the numbness and let it carry you away? It's a strange poll to imagine, but I'd ask you anyway, if you were here, would you be the one still standing at dawn, or would you be the reason another grave needed digging? The snow crunches underfoot, sharp as teeth. The horizon is grey, the sky muted. Nothing about this morning feels like a beginning. It feels like an ending drawn out, slow enough for you to notice every detail, every discomfort, every irony. This is the first morning, and already, you're not sure you want to see the next. The smell hits first. It isn't comforting like the memory of coffee drifting through a kitchen. It's a thin, sour steam rising from a pot blackened by smoke and neglect. You step closer, and the warmth feels like a trick more than a gift. It smells like wood smoke mixed with boiled corn left too long in dirty water. A woman ladles the sludge into a wooden bowl, her hands shaking from cold or hunger, you can't tell which. The liquid dribbles down the side and freezes almost as fast as it falls. You stare at it. Breakfast. A grey-yellow broth with bits that float but never sink. Bubbles forming like blisters on the surface. Your stomach clenches again. Demanding, and yet the smell makes your teeth ache before you even taste it. Someone beside you mutters, "Better than nothing." But is it? You dip your spoon and watch the grainy mush slide back, reluctant, like even the food doesn't want to be here. You put it to your lips. The taste is burnt corn husk with an aftershock of dirt. It scratches the back of your throat on its way down, leaving you more thirsty than before. Your stomach growls in protest, but you swallow anyway because chewing would take too much energy. You laugh under your breath, a humorless sound. This is the new world, a land supposedly flowing with milk and honey. Yet here you are drinking what tastes like boiled rope. The irony spreads wider when you notice what's simmering in another pot nearby strips of leather. Someone decided that boots, when boiled long enough, surrender their dignity and become food. A child gnaws on one now, teeth working uselessly at a lump of dark hide, eyes half shut with exhaustion. Archaeologists still argue whether colonists truly ate leather, but journals say it plainly. We did devour the very skins off our shoes. You wonder, would you, if handed a soaked bootlace? Would you chew it until it dissolved? Or would you choke on pride first? The cold seeps into your fingers as you grip the bowl tighter. Each spoonful tastes worse than the last, but somehow that makes you more determined to finish. Hunger does that. It erases preference. It turns disgust into ritual. You almost smile at the absurdity of calling this breakfast. Back home, You might throw a fit if your coffee order was wrong. Here, you pray for corn mush thin enough to drink. Strange how civilization resets its standards when survival is the only metric. A neighbour sits across from you, face hollow, eyes sunk deep. He doesn't speak, he just eats, spoon moving with mechanical rhythm, like each swallow is one more second of borrowed life. His lips crack as he licks them, blood mixing with the porridge, unnoticed. The sound of chewing fills the air, soft but relentless, like termites working through timber. It's the only sound besides the occasional cough that rattles from someone's chest. You think of the graves again. Every bowl of mush feels like it delays the inevitable by hours, not days. And yet, you cling to it. The bitterness coats your tongue. The texture clogs your teeth. But you laugh again. Softer this time. What else can you do? Wouldn't you laugh too? If your breakfast was indistinguishable from the bucket used to carry firewood, your stomach calms, though never enough. The emptiness is constant, a second heartbeat living under your ribs. You set the bowl down and feel the ache in your hands from gripping it so tightly. The steam curls upward, disappearing quickly, like hope vanishing into cold air. You glance at the others. No one speaks, no one complains. Complaining wastes energy. The silence is heavier than the hunger. Do you think you could keep doing this every morning? Every night would the absurdity break you first? Or the emptiness? Imagine your own breakfast table cereal boxes, coffee mugs, toasted bread. Compare that to this bowl of wet corn, and ask yourself which is easier to swallow, the food, or the realization that someone called this a promised land. The door sticks again when you push it open, swollen with frost, hinges shrieking like a voice that doesn't want you to leave. You brace your shoulder against the rough wood, and finally the cold spills in not a breeze, but a slap, raw and uninvited. You step outside. The world greets you with silence, but not the comforting kind. This silence feels watchful. The snow is packed unevenly, grey and brown with ash, ridged where boots have stomped down paths, then smoothed over by the night wind. You scan the ground, tracing the trails that lead toward the tree line. Some footprints are clear, sharp in detail, showing the tread of a soul. Others fade too soon, as if the person who made them vanished mid-step. You blink and stare again. Maybe the wind erased them, or maybe the forest swallowed them whole. You move forward anyway, your boots sinking, each step punching out a brittle crunch. The sound echoes more than it should, like the world is empty enough to give your feet their own stage. The air smells of wet bark and distant smoke, tinged with a bitterness that clings to your throat. You lift your collar higher, though it does little. The chill doesn't just cling to your skin, it crawls inward, dragging your heartbeat faster. The forest looms, tall and dark, branches knitted together like a ribcage. Light filters in only reluctantly, bending through the canopy in thin, pale shafts. The trees creak in the wind, but it doesn't sound like wood shifting. It sounds like voices slow, murmuring, never quite clear enough to catch. You pause, listening harder, but the whispers fall silent. Only the snow drifts. You step closer, and the ground changes underfoot. No longer the crunch of packed snow, but a softer give, as if something beneath is hollow. You stop, waiting. The trees lean closer with every gust, their shadows stretching like fingers across the snow. You take another step, and a crow bursts from a branch above, its wings flapping sharp as knives. Your heart slams against your ribs, loud enough you think it must be visible in your chest. Somewhere deeper in the woods, a howl carries. It's long, drawn out, uncertain, almost human, almost not. Your breath clouds the air. You freeze, listening. Another howl answers, closer this time. The sound vibrates the ground beneath your feet. You want to move, but your legs feel nailed to the earth. For a moment, you imagine the wolves circling, their paws treading in patterns that leave no footprints at all. You shake the thought away, though it clings stubbornly. A historian might tell you wolves rarely attacked groups of settlers, that the danger was exaggerated in colonial diaries. But does that matter when the sound is here, now, bleeding through the trees, when you feel the echo in your chest like it's aimed at you? Fear doesn't care about accuracy. Fear writes its own record. The sky overhead darkens suddenly as clouds gather, shading the snow until it looks less like earth and more like bone. You pull your coat tighter, though the fabric is thin, worn. Each breath feels sharper than the last. You force your feet to move again, stepping closer to the trees. The wind shifts, carrying with it a smell you don't want rot, faint but present, threaded with the tang of iron. It seeps from somewhere deep in the forest, mixing with the resin of pine. You swallow hard, tasting metal on your tongue. You wonder animal carcass, or something worse. You don't follow the scent. You tell yourself you're only looking for firewood, but each step feels like an invitation you'll regret. Your hand brushes a branch, rough bark scraping your palm. The texture is jagged, almost like teeth. You pull back quickly, but the sting lingers. The trees seem to close ranks behind you, their shadows knitting tighter. You glance back at the cabins. They look smaller now, fragile. A few crooked boxes barely holding the line between people and wilderness. Another howl cuts the air, louder, closer. Your pulse spikes, your breath shallow. You realize you've been gripping a stick in your right hand. When did you pick it up? It's laughable, the idea of fending off anything with this brittle twig. Still, you clutch it tighter, the bark biting into your palm. Do you hear it too? That faint rustling. Not the wind, not your imagination. Something moving just beyond sight. Would you take another step, deeper into the trees, or would you turn back, pretend you never heard it? The question lingers, heavy as the grey sky pressing down. Your stomach growls again, a reminder of why you came outside at all. Food, wood, anything to keep the cold from devouring what little life still burns inside. You force your feet forward, though each step feels borrowed, like you're trespassing where no one invited you. The forest watches. And the longer you stand here, the clearer it feels you're not the hunter. You're the story being written by something else. The sound in your body is louder than the forest. At first you think it's another howl, faint and stretched across the trees, but knoits your stomach. It coils and tightens, then lets out a groan so hollow it feels like a creature living under your ribs, pacing, scratching, demanding. You press your hand against it, but that only makes the emptiness sharper, as if you've just acknowledged the beast inside. You bend down near the tree line, boots sinking into slush, and claw at the frozen ground with numb fingers. The soil is stiff, more ice than dirt, but you keep scraping because the clan swore there were roots here once. Your nails split against grit. Finally, you tear free a twisted tuber, pale and knotted like a dead man's hand. You bite without ceremony. The taste is sour, sharp, full of dirt. It stings your gums, scrapes your tongue, leaves grit grinding between your teeth. You chew anyway, grinding the bitter flesh until it forces its way down your throat. The hunger doesn't fade. It pauses, just long enough to mock you. A diary once confessed, "We ate the very skins of our beasts, not the meat, not even the bones, the hair." Colonists picked at hides, scraping off clumps of fur, chewing until their teeth were stuffed with hairballs like starving cats. You picture it, and your stomach doesn't rebel, it salivates. That's the absurdity. Hunger turns revulsion into craving. If someone handed you a tuft of rabbit fur right now, would you chew it? Would you tell yourself it was food, or simply avoid asking? You stumble further, eyes scanning the snow for movement, a twitch, a flicker, anything edible. Then there. A mouse scurries from one patch of brush to another. Your body reacts faster than thought. You slam your foot down, miss, curse under your breath. The mouse vanishes into a burrow. Your stomach snarls again, louder than your voice. You laugh, bitter, because back home you might have shrieked if a mouse ran across your kitchen floor. Here you'd kill for one. Literally kill. The trees stand in judgment, their branches crooking like arms folded across chests. A crow clacks from overhead, as if laughing at you. You scoop a handful of snow to wash the grit from your teeth. It melts cold in your mouth, metallic, faintly flavoured with ash. It numbs your tongue but doesn't soothe. Water fills your belly for a moment, but the hunger is still there, coiled and restless. Behind you, you hear someone gag. A neighbour retches into the snow after trying the same route. They spit out a black streak, shake their head, then, after a pause, stoop back down and take another bite. No pride left, just survival. You turn away, but the sound lingers. Your hands ache from cold. You tuck them under your arms and shuffle further, pretending the next tree will offer something better. Maybe bark, thick enough to strip. You find a piece that peels back in long, curling strips. The texture is woody, dry, bitter. You gnaw anyway, teeth working at the fibres until your jaw aches. Bark dust sticks in your throat, makes you cough. The irony is cruel trees everywhere, but no fruit, no sweetness, just splinters. The forest smells sharper now, pine resin, rot, faint musk of some animal you'll never catch. Your stomach growls again, and this time it's almost funny. It feels like a second voice, louder than your own, demanding to be heard. You mutter, shut up, and laugh at yourself, because who else is there to argue would you last through this one day? 2. Could you stand the taste of dirt and bark, the sight of a mouse you couldn't catch, the thought of chewing fur like a desperate animal? Or would you give up, sink into the snow, let the hunger finish the story for you? You lick your cracked lips, tasting nothing but salt from your own skin. The beast inside doesn't rest. It waits. And you walk deeper, searching for anything to quiet it, knowing it never truly will. You rise before the sun, though the sun here feels less like light and more like another overseer waiting to scold. Your body doesn't want to move. Every joint protests, stiff, inflamed, as if you've already worked the entire day before even standing. But there's no luxury in hesitation. Outside, men are already gathering, tools clutched like weapons. Though the only battle today is with earth and wood, you step out, the frost crunching beneath your boots. The air is so cold it strips moisture from your lungs, leaving only the burn of emptiness. You grip the shovel, and pain shoots through your palms. The cracks in your skin have split wider overnight. Thin red lines seep, only to freeze immediately into brittle threads. You glance at them and almost laugh. Even your blood doesn't want to waste warmth here. The order comes sharp. Clipped dig. Not a suggestion. Not a plea. A command. You slam the blade into the soil, but the ground is more stone than dirt. The metal rings against frozen earth, the vibration rattling your bones. You lean your weight onto the handle, your shoulders screaming, your spine arching. The shovel carves out an inch. No more. You lift it. Slam again. Over and over until your arms are jelly, your breath a rasping rattle. This is the rhythm of your day, and you realise, bitterly, that people in another century complain about deadlines, the ticking clock in an office, the pressure of screens. Here the deadline is literal. If you stop, you starve. If the trench isn't dug, water floods the stores. If wood isn't stacked, frost wins. You shake your head, wondering what kind of complaint you'd rather have, a late-night email or the grave waiting behind you. The work shifts. Wood must be cut. You lift the axe, the weight unnatural in your hands. Each swing sends lightning through your shoulders, every strike louder than the last, echoing like a drumbeat across the brittle air. Chips fly, sting your face. Sweat beads, then freezes instantly. Needles on your brow. You wipe with your sleeve, only to smear salt and frost into your eyes. They water, sting, blur the world. Still, you swing again. Beside you, someone falters. A man crumples mid-swing, his knees folding. He falls face first into the snow. No one rushes to him. They glance, pause, then continue. Because work left undone is a death sentence for all. You stare at him, breath catching, until he shifts, pushes himself upright, trembling. He coughs, a hacking rattle, then lifts the axe again. You look away, guilt gnawing, because you didn't help either. Your arms shake. The axe slips once, glances off the log, nearly catching your foot. You curse softly, lips cracked and bleeding. You pause, leaning on the handle, staring at the horizon. The sun has crawled weakly upward, pale, offering no heat. The sky feels brittle, a sheet of glass threatening to shatter. You think of the diaries again. One noted that men were whipped for idleness, punished as though laziness were a crime equal to theft. You imagine that whip. Feel the phantom sting on your back. You laugh under your breath, humourless, as if anyone could choose idleness here. The body collapses long before the will. By afternoon, the world sways. Your breath rasps in your chest. Your legs quake with every step. The axe weighs double now, or maybe your arms have halved. You stumble once, catch yourself, stagger again. You hear whispers. At first you think the trees are speaking, as they did yesterday, but no, it's your own mind fraying, thoughts unravelling. Then another collapse. A woman this time, hauling wood too heavy. She falls, the bundle scattering. This time, a boy helps her. His hands raw, too small to carry the load, but he drags a branch anyway. The woman rises slowly, nodding thanks without words. You watch, your chest aching not just from labour, but from the sight of endurance shared. The shadows lengthen, the air sharpens, your body begs to stop. Every muscle screams, your skin split, your breath shallow, and yet you lift again, slam again, chop again, until your arms are numb, until even pain grows tired of you. The irony is heavy. You came seeking life abundant, but the only abundance here is exhaustion. You laugh once more, because what else can you do? Would you rather collapse now, or dig your own grave later? Night creeps fast. The work is called to a halt. You drag yourself back toward the cabin, shoulders burning, palms shredded, legs trembling. Behind you, the field looks no different, just shallow trenches, half-stacked wood, scars on a land that always wins. Ahead of you, the cabins glow faintly with smoke that promises no warmth. You step inside, every joint locking as you lower yourself to the straw. The exhaustion is so total it feels less like rest and more like surrender. You close your eyes, wondering not whether you'll wake, but whether waking tomorrow is a blessing or a punishment. The axe rests heavy against your shoulder as you step into the trees again. The day's work has already stripped the feeling from your arms, but the forest doesn't care how tired you are. It needs wood, and so does the fire. Without it, the night wins. You drag your boots through slush that swallows sound and replaces it with a hush too complete. Even the crows seem reluctant to break it. The forest closes in fast. Branches arch overhead, knitting together into a ceiling that blocks the pale sun. The air is damp, mossy, thick with the resin of pine. You set the axe down for a moment, press your hand to a trunk. The bark is damp and cold, ridged like scar tissue. You dig your fingers into it, peeling a strip free, and it clings like skin before tearing loose. You search for deadfall first branches dry enough to burn, light enough to drag back. Your eyes trace every crooked limb, every tangle of brush. At last you find a bundle half buried in snow. You bend, scoop, and the weight drags against your spine. Pain knifes up your shoulder blades, but you keep lifting. Your breath comes ragged, fogging the air like smoke. Then you hear it, a crack, sharp and deliberate. Not the careless snap of frost, but something heavier. You freeze. The branch bundle slides from your arms and lands with a muffled thud. You hold still, every muscle locked, ears straining, silence. And then, again a rustle, soft, too close. Your heart beats faster. You scan the shadows, eyes darting between the trunks. Shapes blend easily here. The mist curls low along the ground, weaving itself between your legs, between the trees. You think you see movement, something pale slipping behind a trunk. You blink. It's gone. You force yourself to breathe, though each breath is shallow, scraping at your chest. You whisper to yourself, "Animal, just an animal." But the old journals described other things. Settlers swore they saw figures Indian spectres. They called them shapes too human to be beasts, too silent to be alive. Spirits watching from the edges of the clearing, never stepping forward, just staring. You laugh under your breath, though the sound is brittle. You don't believe in spectres, but your pulse doesn't slow either. You gather the wood again, arms trembling. The weight feels doubled now. Every step back toward the path is measured, careful. You glance often over your shoulder, too often, until the rhythm becomes frantic. The forest doesn't move, but it feels as though it's leaning closer. The wind picks up, whistling through bare branches. It's almost a voice low, sighing. Syllables you nearly recognize. Your grip tightens on the bundle, fingers splitting further, blood smearing across the pale wood. You stumble once, almost fall. When you catch yourself, you hear it again, footsteps, and not yours, not animals, heavier. You stop breathing. The sound halts too. You turn slowly, searching, but the mist veils everything. The trunks loom like sentinels, their shadows long and patient. You raise the axe now, though your hands tremble so badly you nearly drop it. The bark bites into your palms. Would you run if it came closer? Would you drop the wood and sprint, or would you stand frozen like prey? You ask yourself silently, but no answer comes. Only the cold, wrapping tighter around your ribs. The mist shifts, and for a heartbeat you see Eater figure, tall, narrow, draped in shadow, watching. The outline holds long enough to freeze your blood, then melts back into the fog. You blink until your eyes burn. It's gone, but the certainty lingers. Something saw you. You force your legs to move, one step, then another, dragging the wood. Each crunch of snow is deafening, each pause worse. You expect to hear the steps again, following. They don't come. The silence feels sharper than noise, a blade pressed against your spine. When you finally see the cabins through the trees, your chest loosens slightly. Smoke drifts weakly from the chimneys, grey against grey sky. You clutch the wood tighter and walk faster, though the ache in your arms feels endless. At the edge of the clearing, you look back. The forest stands silent, indifferent. Yet you swear the mist hangs thicker now, holding the shape of something that was watching, and maybe still is. The day begins with the usual groans of labour's hovels cracking earth, axes echoing against frozen trunks, the dull rattle of coughs inside cabins. Nothing feels unusual until you notice the silence where sound should be. The cabin next to yours, the one with smoke that always rose weak and thin each morning, stands still. No smoke, no footsteps, no coughs, only silence. You wait, expecting a door to creak open, a figure to stumble out, carrying wood or a pail of slush water. Nothing. You glance at the others, but no one seems eager to look. Silence in this place is heavy, dangerous, but curiosity is heavier. You step closer. The snow crunches under your boots, loud enough to make you flinch. The cabin leans the same way it always has, crooked, patched with bark and desperation. But today the door hangs slightly open, as if a hand meant to close it but never finished. The gap exhales a draft sharp enough to sting your nose. You touch the latch. It's cold, slick. Your hand trembles before you even push. The door creaks wider, revealing a room as grey as the sky. Inside, nothing. The fire pit is cold ash, a circle of grey dust where embers should smoulder. The straw bedding is tossed, empty. A wooden bowl lies on its side in the dirt, contents spilled and frozen into a shapeless mass. No people, no voices, no bodies, just absence. Your skin prickles. You step inside, careful, the floor groaning beneath you. The smell is wrong. It isn't the heavy press of mildew and smoke that clings to every other cabin. It's faint, like air swept clean too quickly. You kneel, touch the straw. It's cold, brittle, as if no body has warmed it in days. But you know it was used yesterday. You saw the child at the doorway, coughing into the snow. The image flashes again, her thin arms clutching a rag, her eyes hollow. Now she's gone, along with the rest. You stand too quickly, head spinning. The cabin tilts around you. Neighbours gather in the doorway, their faces pale, waiting for you to say what they don't want to admit. You shake your head. There's nothing, only emptiness. A woman mutters. They went into the woods. Her voice cracks like splitting timber. Another shakes his head. No tracks. You all glance at the snow outside, where footsteps should remain, pressed deep by bodies carrying weight. But the ground shows nothing, only the wind's careless smoothing. Your stomach drops. It feels like the forest again, swallowing what it wants. The councilman arrives, stern, eyes scanning the room like he expects to find a hidden crime. He points at the cold fire pit, mutters something about negligence, desertion. But no one believes that. Where would they go, with no food, no shelter, no strength? The forest is death, and yet death has left no trace here. You step back outside, cold air slapping your face. The other cabins seem closer now, crowding, leaning inward like witnesses. The snow shivers in the wind, erasing more details. Your heart pounds faster. You turn toward the tree line, mist curls between the trunks. For a moment, you imagine shapes against narrow, watching. You blink until your eyes water, but the impression clings. A diary you once read flickers in your mind. Some vanished, leaving no prints upon the snow, as if the devil himself bore them away. You used to scoff at the superstition. Now you aren't sure. The councilman orders the door barred, as if wood could keep out what already walked away unseen. You feel laughter bubble in your throat, hysterical, absurd, but you swallow it down. This isn't funny. It's a hole in the middle of the colony, and holes have a way of spreading. Night comes fast, too fast. The cabins glow weakly, but the one next to yours stays dark. A black gap where life should be. You lie awake on damp straw, staring at the wall, hearing every creak outside. You imagine the missing family walking even now, through mist, eyes open, but unseeing. You picture them staring back at the cabins, waiting for you to follow. Your chest tightens. You pull the ragged cloth tighter around you. The silence from the neighbour's cabin is louder than any howl in the forest, and you know, with a certainty colder than the air, that something is watching, and something has already taken. The first cough seems harmless, a rasp in the corner muffled into the straw. Then another follows louder, raw, cutting through the dark like a crack in old wood. By the third, the cabin walls already echo with it. You pull the ragged blanket closer, but cloth can't block sound, and coughs are contagious. The fire smoulders weakly, leaving the air damp and close. Smoke clings to the rafters, mixing with the smell of sweat, unwashed bodies, and fever. You swallow and taste iron, though you haven't bitten your tongue. Your forehead burns while your spine shivers cold. Your jaw aches from teeth clattering. The body doesn't know what season it's in. Then the chorus begins. Not one cough, not two, but a chain across cabins, spilling into the night. A wet hack to the left, a rattling gasp to the right, a child's thin wheeze. You lie still, eyes wide, counting each as though they're tolls of a bell. 1, 2, 3, until the colony sounds less like a settlement and more like a dying choir. You know the numbers. 1 in 3 won't survive the winter. Hunger is only half the reaper. The other half is disease, malaria, fever, bloody flux. Nobody needs a physician to explain it. The proof is in your stomach twisting, in the ache of your lungs, in the way sweat freezes on your temples. Someone stumbles outside, footsteps uneven, then collapses with a thud against the wall. The sound is followed by a hacking cough, wet and final. You want to rise, but your body is clay, heavy, uncooperative. You sit frozen, clutching your chest, and listen until silence comes. Silence is worse than coughing. At dawn, they drag the body into the snow, wrapped in the same blanket that yesterday promised warmth. Now it's only a shroud. The ground is too frozen for deep graves, so they settle for shallow pits. Wolves will find them. Everyone knows. No one has the strength to dig further. Inside, people trade cures the way starving men trade crumbs. Onion necklaces strung tight around the throat to ward off fever. Vinegar gargled until your tongue blisters. Cabins deliberately filled with smoke to choke out the sickness. They say, though it chokes the healthy faster. You watch a man stagger from one of those huts, eyes red, lungs scorched, coughing harder than before. He insists he feels cured. By nightfall, he's gone. Your own body twists. The stomach cramps without warning, sharp enough to fold you forward. You curl on the straw, clutching your belly. Dysentery. You've seen others fade within days, their strength draining into soiled snow, until all that's left is a sunken face and trembling hands that finally go still. You wipe your mouth, taste blood. Whisper, not me. Not yet. Neighbours mutter prayers through thin walls. Some barter charms wolf claws, coins nailed to door frames. Others whisper of punishment, that sins carried across the ocean are being tallied here. You laugh bitterly, then choke on it. Imagine flu season without tissues, without ibuprofen, without clean water. Imagine lying on damp straw, waiting to see if tomorrow your breath still fogs the air. That's not imagination here. That's Tuesday. The smell worsens each day. Cabins reek not only of smoke, but of sickness, acrid, sour, lingering. Straw darkens with sweat and waste. Flies gather where frost should keep them away. Your hands tremble as you touch the wall, slick with moisture. You wonder if wood itself can sicken. Night stretches long. You close your eyes but can't sleep. Every sound scratches deeper. Groans, whimpers, bodies turning on straw. You picture disease itself creeping under doors, patient, invisible, choosing its next victim. Your chest tightens with each thought. You drag in a breath, ragged, and hold it as if stillness might keep it out. But disease doesn't wait at thresholds. It's already inside. In you. In everyone. Another cough racks your chest. This one yours. Would you survive this? Lying in a bed that feels like a coffin, waiting to see if morning brings breath or silence? Or would you vanish into the tally? Just another line in a diary that future centuries will skim without stopping. The thought presses against you harder than the fever. You curl tighter, shivering. The colony coughs itself into night, into silence. And disease creeps in closer, hungrier, unseen. The sickness doesn't just eat bodies, it eats trust. When food dwindles and fevers climb, the colony looks for something to blame. And soon, they find it witches. It begins as a murmur. A woman's child dies before dawn, and before dusk the mother is whispered about. A man collapses in the field, and someone mutters that his neighbour cursed his crop. Words carry faster than fire in a wooden town. You feel it in every glance. At the well, eyes linger too long on your hands, as though dirt beneath your fingernails might be proof of sorcery. At the woodpile, hammers stop mid-swing when you pass. Even the air feels hostile. Suspicion thickens it until every breath scratches. The meeting house is colder than the snow outside. Neighbours gather, gaunt faces lit by guttering candles. At first, they argue herbs, charms, prayers. Then someone eyes fever bright hisses a single word witchcraft. It hangs in the room like smoke. Heads nod. Too many. Fear hardens into certainty. You hear a man slam his fist on the table. The devil has followed us across the sea. He walks among us. His voice quakes, not with doubt, but with hunger for explanation. Better a devil than nothing. Better an enemy with a face than sickness without reason. You know the histories. Salem, not even a century away, where dozens were accused and hanged. Scholars later whispered of ergot in rye fungus, warping minds with visions, paranoia baked into bread. But none of that matters here. Fear doesn't wait for science. Fear is quicker than knowledge. By night, whispers thicken. Someone's seen boiling herbs too often. Another mutters in sleep words mistaken for curses. A girl stares too long into the fire, and suddenly her gaze burns too strange. Every act becomes evidence. Every silence becomes confession. And then the eyes turn on you. It happens so easily. You cough at the well, your chest rattling, heads whip toward you. A woman clutches her child as if your breath carried demons. Another man whispers. She walks strong while others weaken. You want to laugh. Your bones ache. Your belly twists with hunger, but laughter might sound like mockery. You swallow it down. The next gathering is worse. They demand signs. Proof. They force one woman to read aloud from the Bible for hours, waiting for her tongue to falter. When her voice cracks with thirst, they call it demonic. Another is dragged into the snow, forced to stand barefoot until she collapses, as if frostbite could reveal guilt. You watch, silent, stomach knotted. Absurd cures multiply. Onion necklaces to ward off evil. Vinegar rubbed into skin to drive out spirits. Some burn herbs until cabins fill with choking smoke, swearing it purges witchcraft. You cough in the haze, eyes stinging, wondering which kills faster, the devil or the remedies. Your own turn feels close. At night, you imagine a finger pointing, a name shouted, yours. You picture hands gripping your arms, dragging you into the square. You picture your neighbour's eyes, no longer eyes but blades. How would you defend yourself? Speak too much, and you sound desperate. Speak too little, and you sound guilty. Your throat tightens as though a rope already presses there. Would you deny it? Would you fight, or would you stare back, silent, while suspicion cuts your name into the colony's memory? You imagine both choices, neither ending well. You lie awake, straw prickling your skin, heart hammering until you think the sound will give you away. Outside, snow muffles the world, yet through the hush you hear whispers your name, or maybe just the wind. And in that moment, you understand the colony doesn't need evidence. It needs sacrifice. A witch trial is easier than admitting helplessness. Easier to blame a neighbour than to face the void. The eyes that follow you the next morning are colder than the snow, sharper than wolves. You feel their weight as you carry the bucket, as though every step were already a trial. You shiver, not from fever, but from the certainty that one day soon the finger will point, and when it does, the colony won't see you. They'll see only the witch they've been waiting for. The night begins with the sound you've almost grown used to, the wind gnawing at the shutters, the low moan of timbers shifting under frost, but then it comes, the howl. Long, stretched thin as wire, dragging across the frozen dark. It doesn't sound close at first, but you know better. Sound carries strange in the snow. Another answers, shorter, sharper, then another, from the opposite side of the cabins. You sit up on your straw bed, your skin prickling as though the howls themselves brush along your arms. Hunger speaks in every note. Wolves. The fire in the hearth has collapsed to a red glow, barely lighting the cramped room. You feed it the last scrap of wood, watch the flames lick weakly, and wonder if this glow is the only thing between you and teeth. Outside, boots scrape as neighbours rush to bar doors, drag logs against thresholds. Somewhere, a child begins crying, high and thin. The sound is quickly muffled. You reach for anything, a weapon, a tool. Your hand closes on a stone, heavy but useless. Still, you clutch it, your palms sweating against the cold surface. The irony bites. You hold a rock against hunger that moves on four legs, jaws wide, eyes glowing in the dark. But you can't unclench your fist. The weight feels like the only choice you have. The howls grow louder, circling, echo bouncing until you can't tell how many wait out there. 210 an army. You press your ear to the log wall. Beyond it, poor steps shuffle on snow, measured, deliberate. The forest leans closer, its shadows pressing against the cabin, as if even the trees want to watch. A snarl rips through the dark, close enough to make the walls quiver. You jolt back, heart hammering. The sound isn't just hunger, it's challenge. Your stomach knots tighter than ever, mirroring the wolves. You remember settlers' diaries that spoke of nights like this. Wolves dragging corpses from shallow graves, circling cabins until dawn. You used to read them as exaggerations. Tonight, you believe every word. The colony has no guns left loaded, no powder dry, only axes, clubs, stones. You think of your neighbours, gaunt and trembling, wielding sticks as though they were spears. Wolves are leaner this winter too, ribs visible even in the dark. Hunger sharpens both sides. A crash erupts at the edge of the settlement. You freeze, straining to hear. Wood splinters. Voices shout. A dog yelps. And then silence. Your chest seizes. Was it dragged into the woods? You wait, ears straining. But silence stretches too long. Then, nearer than ever, claws scrape at your own door. A steady drag, like nails across bone. You flinch, back pressed against the far wall. The stone in your hand trembles with your fist. Every instinct screams to run, but there's nowhere to go. Only snow, trees, teeth. You close your eyes, try to hear something beyond your own heart. The wolves breathe out there, you swear you hear it. Low, panting hunger. Your breath clouds in the cold air, and you try to steady it, knowing sound travels. Would you survive this night, clutching a stone in a cabin that feels smaller with each heartbeat? Or would the door shudder open, wood giving way, and jaws rush in? Another howl tears the sky, so close it shakes your ribs. This time, others answer in chorus, weaving around the cabins. The sound doesn't fade, it tightens, a noose of hunger pulling closer. You press your forehead to the cold wall and imagine eyes glinting in the dark, hundreds of them, waiting for the moment you let your guard slip. The child cries again, muffled but not enough. The howls pitch higher, excited. You grip the stone until it cuts into your palm, blood slick against rock. The scent of it fills your nose, metallic, sharp. You wonder if wolves can smell it too. The night drags on, every minute stretching longer, until time itself feels sick. Your body aches from stillness, your jaw locked against the scream you don't want to release. Fire dwindles again. The room fades darker. You watch shadows dance on the walls, jagged and shifting, as if wolves are already inside, circling closer. When dawn finally stains the snow grey, the howls weaken, then drift. They don't end, wolves, never end, they only pause. You slump back, the stone slipping from your hand, palm raw, fingers cramped, your eyes close, but not from rest. From exhaustion that feels like surrender. You know the wolves will return. Hunger always does, and when it does, you'll still have nothing but a rock. The light finally comes, but it does not bring comfort. You wake to the pale grey of dawn, a sky heavy with ash-coloured clouds, the kind that never fully brighten. Your body feels like it belongs to someone else, limbs leaden, eyelids swollen. The straw bed clings to your skin, damp from breath and sweat, and when you rise, the cold bites harder than ever. The wolves are gone, or at least silent. Their prints scar the snow outside, pressed deep, circling the cabins like a noose. Some trails lead toward the woods, fading into shadows. Others linger near doors, claws etched into the frozen earth as if the beast had paced for hours. Waiting. You shudder, though your body has no warmth left to spare. Neighbours shuffle out too, faces gaunt, eyes rimmed red from a night without sleep. No one speaks at first. Their silence feels heavier than the air, as though words themselves have frozen. A child coughs, and the sound cuts the morning open like a blade. You clutch your stomach. It growls again, louder than the child's cough, echoing like something alive within you. You bend slightly, pressing an arm across it, but the ache doesn't fade. It feels more beast than body now, gnawing, demanding. You look at the snow and almost wonder how it would taste cold. Empty, at least filling. The sun should rise higher, warm the frost, but it doesn't. It lingers low, weak, throwing long shadows that stretch across the settlement. The cabins look smaller than ever, half buried in drifts, their roofs sagging under ice. Smoke trickles from chimneys, thin and reluctant. Even fire seems exhausted, a man mutters. Morning comes, and we're hungrier than we were at dusk. His voice is ragged, cracked with thirst. Another laughs bitterly, no humour in the sound. You glance at their faces, hollow cheeks, cracked lips. Everyone wears hunger like a mask, the same expression etched into skin. You step toward the tree line, though your legs protest. Each movement feels like dragging chains. The forest waits, tall and dark, its branches clawing at the sky. Yesterday you feared the wolves inside. Today you fear your own emptiness more. Your boots crunch on the snow, but weaker now, as if the sound itself has grown tired. The air smells of pine, rot, and smoke, but even the scents seem muted, dulled by exhaustion. Your breath fogs before your face, rising and fading. It looks like your spirit leaving you in small, steady pieces. Would you trade the fear of night for the hunger of day? It feels less like a choice, more like a cycle. Fear feeds hunger. Hunger feeds fear, and both wear you down until nothing is left. The others don't follow you far. They linger by their doors, leaning on frames for support. Some sit in the snow as though too weary to care about the cold seeping into their bones. You catch their eyes, but no spark answers, just emptiness. You kneel near a fallen branch, try to snap it for kindling. The wood resists, frozen solid, biting into your palms until skin splits. Blood wells, red against white. For a moment you watch it, transfixed, before wiping it on your coat. The stain blooms like rust. Your stomach clenches again, a violent spasm. You grit your teeth, hold back a groan. Around you, the world is silent, but inside, your body roars like an animal caged. The dawn drags on, slow as death. No warmth comes, no relief. just grey light stretching endlessly. A day that feels more like night. You stand, shoulders heavy, eyes half closed, and wonder how many more mornings like this remain. And then you realise the cruelest truth: sometimes daylight isn't salvation. Sometimes it only shows you clearly how bad things have become. You look back at the cabins, smoke thinning, neighbours shrinking into shadows, hunger tighter than ropes, fear quieter but deeper. Dawn has arrived, and still, there is no relief. The body waits by the door all night, stiffening as the frost claims it. No one dares to sit beside it for long. The smell rises even in the cold, faint but undeniable, a mix of sweat, sickness, and something sweet that doesn't belong in the living. At dawn, they come for the burial, not with ceremony, not with prayers, just with tired hands and eyes that no longer flinch. The ground is iron. The first strike of the spade rings like metal against metal. You kneel to help. Fingers roar against the frozen soil. Every scoop feels stolen, each clump more stone than earth. The grave grows shallow, far too shallow. The frost won't let you go deeper. You know wolves will find it, perhaps tonight, but there's no strength left to dig further. You strike again anyway, arms shaking, shoulders burning, sweat freezing on your skin. The handle of the spade blisters your palms, and when the blister splits, blood slicks the wood. You grit your teeth, keep going. The others work in silence. No hymns, no words of comfort. Breath fogs the air, rising like ghosts. But voices stay locked in chests. It feels wrong, yet you understand words are too expensive now. Words mean energy. Energy means survival. Finally, the shallow pit yawns open. You lower the body with care, though your hands tremble. The blanket wrapped around it is damp, stiff. For a moment, the figure could be sleeping until the face shifts and you see the frost clinging to lips, to lashes, sealing them shut forever. You step back, and someone throws the first scoop of earth. It hits with a hollow thud, darker than any sound you've heard all winter. Another follows, and another. The sound becomes a rhythm, a cruel drumbeat. Dirt falls onto blanket, onto face, until the body disappears beneath the frozen earth. Your stomach twists, but not from hunger this time, from pity, from fear, from the weight of knowing this isn't the last. You look around. More bodies wait in more cabins. Some still breathe, faint and shallow, but you can already see them joining this grave before the snow melts. The settlement is shrinking, one shallow pit at a time. Would you say something, if you had the strength, a prayer, a memory, even a name? The thought flickers through you like a spark, but dies before it reaches your tongue. Silence feels safer. If you speak, the wind might carry your words away and remind you that the sky doesn't answer. So you work instead, scoop after scoop until the ground levels, until the grave looks less like a wound and more like snow again. As if nothing happened here. As if no one lived here. You press the soil down with the back of the spade. It's cruel, but necessary. The wolves circle even in daylight. Fresh graves call to them. You glance at the tree line, half expecting to see eyes gleaming back. The forest feels closer every time you bury another. When it's done, you stand with the others, silent, chests heaving with frost-laden air. A wind cuts across the clearing, stinging your face. You close your eyes against it. For a moment you imagine the earth soft, green, easy to dig, filled with flowers. But when you open them again, the snow blinds you, grey and endless. The body is gone, but the hunger, the cold, the sickness, they stay. You drag the spade back to the cabin, arms numb, shoulders heavy. The earth you touch clings to your gloves, black streaks on pale leather. You rub them clean against the snow, but the stain doesn't fade. The bell rings dull in the frozen air, a hollow clang that summons every survivor to the square. You pull your cloak tight, though cloth cannot block the dread pooling in your chest. Feet shuffle through the snow, slow and reluctant, but no one dares ignore the call. The council stands on the platform, gaunt silhouettes against the pale sky. Their eyes are sunken, skin pulled tight across cheekbones, but their voices carry sharp as iron. Hunger has hollowed them too, yet it sharpens their need for control. One man clutches the Bible, another the ledger that holds names and numbers, who eats, who starves. The first decree falls like an axe, rations cut again. The meagre bowls of gruel thinned to near nothing. Children will share portions no bigger than a fist, adults less. Old men, God will decide their portion. Murmurs ripple, low, dangerous. A fist clenches at your side, nails digging into palm, but you don't speak. Then the punishments are read. A boy caught gnawing on hidden scraps bread crust stolen weeks ago. He is dragged forward, his face pale with terror, lips blue with cold. His hands tremble as they tie them behind his back. The council declares theft a sin against all, and the penalty death. You feel your knees weaken. A boy no older than 15 kneels in the snow while neighbours avert their eyes. The axe rises. You want to shout, to stop it, but your throat is locked tight, your breath shallow. The blade falls, quick and final. Snow spatters crimson, steaming briefly before the wind carries it away. The silence that follows is heavier than the strike itself. The ledger opens again. Names are read, those accused of hoarding, of laziness, of suspicious behaviour. Each name hangs in the air like frost. Then one hits harder than the others. Yours. Your stomach lurches. The ground seems to tilt. You step forward because not stepping forward is worse. Eyes stab into you from all sides, sharp as blades. You feel them prick your skin, pierce your ribs. Every breath feels borrowed. They accuse you of shirking labour, of keeping more than your share. Lies, perhaps, or suspicion dressed as fact. Hunger twists truth easily. You stammer that you've worked, that your hands are cracked and bleeding like all the others, but your voice shakes, thin and weak. The council watches with cold eyes. One scratches notes into the ledger, each stroke like a nail in wood. Another raises his chin, as if sniffing for guilt. You tremble, but you force yourself to meet their gaze. Silence stretches, suffocating. Would they kill you for nothing? You know the answer. The boy's body still lies in the snow. At last, the Bible is raised, and one man growls, "Repent. Swear by God's hand you will not betray this settlement." His words are heavy, but his eyes are hollow, desperate for power in a world slipping beyond control. You nod, voice cracking as you swear. The crowd mutters, half satisfied, half doubting. The ledger snaps shut. You stumble back into line, knees trembling, chest heaving. The snow blurs before your eyes, white and red mixing. You know next time you may not leave the platform alive. The council dismisses the crowd. Their decree's final. Neighbours scatter, heads bowed, eyes averted. No one meets your gaze now. You walk alone, every step louder than the last. Back in the cabin, you sink onto the straw, palms still shaking. Outside, the wind howls, carrying echoes of the axe. You close your eyes, but you see the boy, his blood blooming like a flower in the snow. You hear your own name, cold and sharp, echoing in the council's voice. The rules grow harsher, the rations thinner, and the colony it grows smaller. One execution, one shallow grave at a time. When the crowd finally drifts apart, no one speaks above a whisper. The square empties quickly, but the silence left behind feels louder than any sermon. Snowflakes land where blood still stains the ground, each one melting as if ashamed to cover it. You linger at the edge, unable to move. Your breath shallow as though stepping too hard might summon your name again. A child tugs on her mother's sleeve nearby. Why won't he come home? The mother hushes her quickly, her hand trembling as she pulls the girl away. You press your lips together, throat tight. No one answers children anymore. The truth is too heavy for their ribs. Back inside, the cabins hum with low murmurs. Some curse the council under their breath. Others defend them, saying harsh law is the only rope holding the colony upright. The arguments don't last. Hunger drains even anger. Soon the voices fade, leaving only coughs and the rattle of empty pots. You lie on the straw, staring at the rafters. Every creak of wood sounds like the council's ledger opening again. You imagine your name written there in black ink, waiting for a strike through it. Tomorrow, someone else will be accused. Tomorrow, the axe might fall again. And yet, part of you wonders, is this cruelty, or just survival twisted into its ugliest shape? You close your eyes, but the question won't sleep. The theft is discovered at dawn. A barrel of cornmeal, already thin as dust, stands cracked open in the storehouse. The snow beneath it is streaked with a faint trail, as if some desperate hand scooped handfuls and scattered crumbs on the way out. The council gathers in the square again, their faces pale with fury or maybe just hunger sharpened into rage. Either way, the air feels brittle enough to shatter. You stand in the crowd, heart pounding, eyes darting. Everyone does. Suspicion moves faster than wind. It skips from face to face, hunting for weakness, for guilt. No one meets each other's eyes. No one dares. A voice shouts, "Someone stole from us all. Another the devil's work. Again." The words sting, louder than the howling nights, because hunger makes devils of neighbours quicker than wolves ever could. You shift your weight, but the snow crunch is too loud. Heads turn, eyes narrow. A woman mutters, "He looks stronger than most. Maybe he eats more." Your stomach knots, emptier than it's ever been, but her gaze latches on you like claws. Then the council calls for names, witnesses. Someone must have seen something. Silence thickens, stretching long and cruel, until suddenly a finger points. At you. Your breath catches. The world tilts. For a moment you can't move, can't speak. Then a man's voice, thin, trembling, adds to the accusation. "I saw him near the storehouse last night." Your knees nearly buckle. You want to scream to deny it. You open your mouth, words rising, but they falter. Too many eyes stab into you, cold and sharp. You feel them carving guilt onto your skin, writing your confession without your consent. You shake your head, your voice breaking. "I was at the cabin. Ask my neighbour." But your neighbour stares at the ground, lips sealed, unwilling to risk himself. The fury swells. Murmurs ripple. "If he steals, we starve. Punish him, or we all suffer." The crowd circles closer, breath steaming in the grey air, faces warped by hunger into something less than human. A man lunges, grabs your coat. You wrench away, stumbling, rage bursting hot in your chest. For the first time, you want to fight. You want to swing your fist, to shout until your throat bleeds. The injustice burns hotter than the fireless hearths. But even in that moment, fear smothers you. To resist is to admit guilt. To fight is to feed the mob. So you stand still, trembling, fists clenched but unmoving. The anger in you turns inward, clawing at your ribs, searching for release that never comes. The council raises its hand. The square falls quiet. One of the elders, his cheeks hollow but his eyes cruel, speaks. "We have no proof, but proof is less than survival. Until the thief is found, rations will be halved." A gasp spreads through the crowd. Halved. Already children cry at night with bellies gnawing their bones. Already old men collapse in the snow. Now the council demands more sacrifice, and because your name was spoken, every glance sharpens against you. That night, you cannot sleep. Every rustle outside the cabin makes you flinch. Every shadow feels like a figure waiting with rope or axe. Hunger twists in your belly, anger in your chest. You pace the floor, each step grinding straw into dust. You remember scraps from old diaries. Colonists punished with lashes, ears cropped, even death, for stealing a crust of bread. You used to think it barbaric. Tonight you see the logic. Brutal and simple. One man's stolen bite could kill 10 others. Still, logic doesn't soothe when the rope feels ready for your neck. Would you confess if it would end the suspicion, or would you cling to silence, knowing confession means execution? The questions circle like wolves, gnawing your mind until even sleep feels dangerous. Outside, voices murmur. You freeze, ear to the wall. Two neighbours whisper, words barely carried through the logs. It must have been him. No one else looks as alive. The other replies, alive won't last long. Then footsteps crunch away. Your chest heaves. You want to fling open the door, scream your innocence into the night, but you don't. You stay inside, clutching your arms tight, swallowing rage until it tastes like iron in your throat. When morning comes, no one speaks to you. They hand you your ration half a crust, smaller than a fist with fingers that flinch from yours. Their eyes never meet yours. You chew it slowly, each bite bitterer than ash, each swallow proof that you're still alive, though unwanted. And then you notice the real thief walks among you. Too careful, too silent, but you see the crumbs at his sleeve, the faint bulge beneath his coat. For a heartbeat, fury flares, hot and blinding. You could shout his name, point the finger back, save yourself, but your voice stays locked. Because you know what happens to the accused, you've lived it, and now you live with the betrayal, silent, watching, waiting for the next finger to rise. The forest swallows them one by one. At first it seems ordinary, just another group trudging into the trees for firewood, and whatever scraps of bark or root might be chewed into something like food. You watch them leave at dawn, breath rising like thin banners into the grey sky, their axes slung across thin shoulders, their faces set with grim determination. Everyone knows the risk, but everyone also knows the fire will die without wood, and if the fire dies, so does the colony. You stand at the edge of the clearing long after they disappear between the trees. The forest closes behind them, branches knitting overhead like a gate. The silence that follows is unnerving, as if the woods itself has inhaled and refuses to exhale. Hours pass. Snow falls in fine threads, covering tracks, muffling sound. You pace, listening for the familiar chop of axes, the crack of wood splitting, but no sound comes, only wind through the branches, low and mournful. By afternoon, unease grows. Neighbours glance at one another, their eyes asking the same question, why haven't they returned? But no one voices it aloud. To name fear is to give it shape, and no one dares shape this fear yet. When dusk bleeds into the sky, the search begins. You join a small group, torches sputtering in the bitter wind. Each step into the forest feels like crossing a threshold you can't retreat from. Shadows lean long, stretching across snow, bending like claws. The tracks are faint, half buried, but you follow them deeper into the dark. At first, the prints are clear boots pressed into snow, dragging sledges, but soon they scatter, as if the group broke apart, some moving left, others right. Confusion seeps into your chest. Why would they separate? Then you see it, a splash of red against white. Fresh, too bright to be old. Blood, smeared where someone stumbled. Your stomach lurches. The torchlight flickers, making the stain seem to pulse. The group halts, breath heavy, eyes wide. Someone whispers a prayer, voice cracking. Another mutters, wolves. You know wolves leave more than smears. You know wolves leave pieces, but you don't correct him. You press forward, heart pounding. More prints appear, erratic. Deep men running, stumbling. Then the trail ends. Not fades, not scatters. Ends. The snow beyond lies untouched, smooth as glass, as if no one ever walked there at all. A woman gasps. They're gone. Her words hang heavy, like frost settling in your bones. Gone. Swallowed whole by trees that creak overhead like old doors. You strain to hear something. Anything. A cry. A howl. The echo of axes. But only silence answers. The torches sputter lower. The shadows crowd tighter. And then you see it, barely, almost nothing, another stain. Darker than blood, seeping into snow. A drag mark. Not wide enough for a body, but strange, irregular. It vanishes beneath a fallen log, as if the earth itself took it. You crouch, fingertips brushing the snow, cold bites deep, but you swear the ground feels softer here, as if hollow beneath. You jerk your hand back, heart racing. The search falters. Some argue to push deeper, others to turn back. Fear splits the group faster than hunger ever did. One man insists it's spirits. The native phantom settlers whispered about. The forest reclaiming what's hers. Another spits, blaming deserters. They fled. Cowards. Left us to starve. You say nothing, but inside, doubt gnaws. If they fled, where snow leaves no path untouched, and if they were taken by wolves, by sickness, by something worse, why no bodies, why no screams? The torches flicker lower. The cold thickens, clinging to your lungs. Finally, the decision is made retreat. The forest is too vast, too silent, too alive in ways you don't understand. On the way back, you glance over your shoulder, and there, in the last flare of torchlight, you see it a crimson trail, faint, melting into snow, drops that lead deeper, vanishing into darkness. You freeze, staring until someone tugs your arm. "Come," they whisper. But the image burns in your eyes, blood fading into white, swallowed whole. Back at the cabins, you say nothing of what you saw. The others don't either. Fear becomes a secret, shared silently in the hollows of eyes, in the stiffness of shoulders. No one asks what happened to the missing. No one speaks their names. Days later, their cabins still stand, doors shut, windows dark, snow piles against the thresholds. Children glance at them, wide-eyed, but parents hush them quickly. The colony shrinks again, not by graves this time, but by absence. You lie awake at night, hearing the trees groan beyond the walls, remembering the stains in the snow. You wonder if the forest has teeth you cannot see, jaws wider than wolves, swallowing men whole. Historians centuries later will argue about the lost colony, where the settlers fled, starved, or were taken in by others. Some will say it was disease, others war, others the pull of land too harsh to bear. But here, in the frozen silence, you know what it feels like, the forest itself taking back what it never meant to give. And the cruelest part tomorrow, another group must venture in. And tomorrow, the forest will be waiting. The miracle comes not with trumpets, not with angels, but with the slow drag of boots across the snow and the sharp tang of blood in the air. They stumble into the settlement at dusk, a hunting party reduced to 3 from the 7 who left. Their faces are hollow, lips split, eyes wild with exhaustion, but between them they drag something heavier than hope. A deer, half frozen, its dark hide stiff, blood crusted on its flank. The children see first. Their cries split the grey silence. Shrill and unbelieving, grown men stagger forward, eyes widening, hands trembling as if reaching for salvation, and you stand at the cabin door, body shaking with weakness, and feel something dangerous flare in your chest. Joy. The deer is lowered onto the snow, its body steaming faintly in the cold. Knives are drawn dull from months of scraping bark, but sharp enough now. Strips are cut, thin but precious, held high as if to prove the miracle real. You push through the crowd, heart pounding, breath ragged. Hunger roars louder than caution. Someone shouts for order, for the council, but no one listens. The smell alone undoes you, the metallic tang of fresh meat, copper sweet and sharp. Your mouth waters so fiercely it hurts. A woman falls to her knees, clutching a strip of raw flesh to her lips. Another tears at a bone with shaking hands. The scene turns frantic, almost savage, yet no one cares. They are eating. For the first time in weeks, eating. You seize a piece yourself, warm and slippery in your grip. You raise it to your mouth and bite. The taste explodes saltless, wild, bitter with blood, but real, solid. You chew fast, swallow too soon, nearly choking you don't care. Relief floods through you, so strong your eyes sting. You laugh, a broken rasping sound, but laughter nonetheless. The absurdity strikes you. Gnawing raw venison in the snow, lips smeared red, teeth chattering with both cold and ecstasy. You laugh because for one moment you're not starving. For one moment, you are alive. The meat is divided, though unevenly, though unfairly. Some hoard scraps for their families, others barter with strips like coins. The council tries to impose order, but their voices carry no weight here. Hunger governs now. And hunger is merciful only in that it allows anyone to eat at all. That night, fires burn brighter. Pots boil with thin stews that steam against the rafters. The smell fills the cabins, rich and heavy, sinking into the wood. For once, you don't resent it. You sit by the hearth with your bowl, the broth oily, meat stringy, but the warmth spreads through your chest like a forgotten prayer. You eat fast, too fast, then slow, then sip until the bowl is dry. You lick it clean, not ashamed, not even pretending. Around you, others do the same. Children curl with full bellies, sighing in their sleep. For the first time in months, their cries are gone. The silence is golden. You lean back, head against the logs, and laugh again. It bursts from you unbidden, halfway to a sob, but it feels good. Ridiculous, maybe, but good. You laugh because you have meat between your teeth and warmth in your belly, and for tonight, that is enough. Still, irony lingers like smoke. You know the deer will not last. Days, maybe, if guarded, if rationed. But it will be gone, and hunger will return, fiercer for having been sated. The forest gives rarely, and never without a price. You remember the faces of the 4 hunters who did not return. Their absence is a shadow across every bite. Someone whispers their names, but no prayer follows. Words are too costly again. You finish your bowl, wipe your mouth, and feel the weight of the moment settle in your bones. Relief, yes, but also dread, because you know the mercy is small, fleeting, a spark in the storm. Would you trade it? This one night of fullness for the days of emptiness to come. You shake your head, smiling faintly, because the question is absurd. Of course you wouldn't trade. A starving man doesn't bargain with tomorrow. Later, lying in the dark, you feel your stomach heavy, your limbs loose. You close your eyes, and for the first time in weeks, sleep comes without struggle. The wind still howls, the frost still creeps, but you dream of meat sizzling, of fire blazing, of laughter not forced from broken lungs. And in that fragile dream, the colony is whole, the graves are empty, and the forest waits patiently, knowing it will be hungry again soon. Small mercies, that's all survival ever was. The meat is gone within days. You knew it would be. Hunger returns, heavier for having been briefly satisfied, like a tide that recedes only to crash harder. But something shifts in you, in all of you. The memory of eating, of laughing even, leaves a faint ember, enough to remind you that survival is possible but only together. Nights stretch long again, but now the cabins gather tighter. No more lone families huddling in corners, guarding scraps like jealous animals. Instead, you crowd shoulder to shoulder, pressed close until you can't tell whose breath clouds the air, whose trembling hand grips yours in the dark. It begins with a single candle. One family sets theirs in the middle of the room, flames small but defiant, throwing shadows that dance across the logs. At first, neighbours scoff. Why waste tallow when food already runs thin? But then another brings a candle, and another. Soon the darkness recedes, replaced by a circle of flickering light. The warmth is faint, laughably faint, yet real. You sit near it, knees drawn up, your side pressed against another's. For once, you don't mind the closeness, the stink of unwashed bodies. The human heat seeps into your bones, gentler than firewood ever could. You realize it then. Your salvation isn't the deer, wasn't the council, won't be the forest. It's the person beside you, breathing, shivering, enduring, alone. You are nothing but kindling waiting for frost to snuff you out. Together, you're fire. You remember the boy executed for theft, the neighbour accused and buried without words. Each death wasn't just hungers, work it was divisions. Fear splitting the colony into prey for the cold. You wonder if the forest didn't need wolves at all. It only needed you to stop seeing each other as human. Now, pressed in the glow, you see faces differently. Hollow, yes. Gaunt, yes, but alive. Eyes meet yours without accusation, just weary solidarity. No one speaks, but in silence you share something larger than words. A child leans against you, her head heavy on your arm. Her hair smells of smoke and damp wool, but the weight anchors you, pulls you back from despair. You let her stay, though your muscles ache. You think of your own family, far away, perhaps gone. You let yourself imagine this warmth could be theirs. Would you have survived alone? You know the answer. You'd be bones in the snow, a shallow grave for wolves to unearth. The thought strikes you cold, then warm, because you aren't bones not yet. You're here, breathing, because others still breathe with you. The candle sputters, wax drips. Someone cups their hand to shield the flame, whispering softly as though it can hear. The gesture stirs you more than any prayer. It's foolish, but beautiful. This shared protection of something so fragile. You add your hand too, blocking drafts, feeling the heat lick your skin. One candle becomes many, each small, each inadequate. But together, They hold back the dark, and in that faint circle, you feel something almost forgotten: safety. Historians centuries later will tally numbers, debate causes: disease, famine, cold, native resistance, ergot in the bread. They'll weigh evidence, scribble theories, argue until voices hoarse, but none of them will know this moment the press of another's heartbeat against yours, the way a single candle, shared, could mean the difference between waking and never waking again. Your chest tightens, not from hunger, but from clarity. Survival was never about you, it was always about us. You close your eyes, lean into the shoulder beside you, and let the rhythm of shared breath lull you. Outside, the forest still waits, snow still deepens, but inside here darkness does not win, and when you finally sleep, it's with the knowledge that one candle, shared, burns brighter than any hoarded flame. Later that night, when the candles burn low and shadows stretch long across the walls, someone begins to speak. Not loudly, not boldly, just a hushed voice in the half-dark. An old woman, her hair white as frost, tells of summers past, of fields green and heavy with corn, of rivers so thick with fish that a man could scoop them by hand. Her voice trembles, but not from fear, from memory. Others join, cautiously. A man recalls his childhood home across the sea, how his mother baked bread so fragrant the smell would follow him through the street. A girl whispers about the garden her family left behind, rows of beans and pumpkins she planted with her own hands. The words spill slow, uneven, but they weave together. For the first time in months, the silence is filled not with coughs or accusations, but with stories. You sit listening, chest tight, and realize what they're doing, calling back the world that once was, if only to prove it existed. You feel the urge to add your own voice. At first, your throat closes. You haven't spoken of a home in so long, but then the child still leaning on your arm looks up at you, her eyes wide, waiting, and you hear yourself speak. You tell of your first harvest, small, clumsy, but yours, of the smell of wet earth after rain, of the sound of laughter in the village square when bells rang at dusk. The words scrape out, strange on your tongue, but once begun they pour easier, like water from a thawed stream. Others nod, murmur softly, filling in details of their own. The stories overlap, blend, become one. In that moment you realize hunger cannot take memory. The forest can swallow bodies, the council can steal breath, but memory belongs to you. And memory shared becomes something stronger than food. Someone produces a coal from the hearth, carrying it carefully in a clay bowl. They set it in the center, feeding the small flames with shreds of bark. The glow grows, not bright but steady. You remember a custom once told neighbors carrying fire from one cabin to another, so no household's flame died alone. You see it now, reborn, as a living thread binding you all. You lean closer, feeling the warmth touch your cheeks. The child beside you sighs, her breath evening into sleep. You pull your coat tighter around her small body. She stirs, presses closer, and you feel her heartbeat against your ribs. For the first time since arriving in this frozen land, you feel not alone. The irony is sharp. You came chasing independence, a life carved from wilderness by your own hands. Yet survival demands the opposite. It demands surrender not to despair, but to each other, each. You think of the graves in the frozen ground, how quickly death came when fear and suspicion ruled. Now you wonder how many might have lived had they chosen this sooner, this closeness, this circle of warmth. A laugh breaks the hush, thin, but real. Then another. Soon a ripple of tired chuckles circles the room, not because anything is funny, but because the absurdity of life itself is undeniable in the darkest winter, in the smallest flame. There is still reason to laugh. You imagine, absurdly, what some distant future might hold people in cities lit brighter than day, complaining when power fails for even an hour. You wonder if they will know what you know, that even a single candle shared can be enough. As the fire dwindles and sleep pulls at your bones, you lie back against the rough logs, the girl still pressed to your side. You listen to the symphony of breath around you, some deep, some ragged, all proof of life. Your own chest rises with theirs, in rhythm, as if the whole room breathes as one. You close your eyes. The storm still rages outside. Wolves still roam. The forest still waits, but inside, for this night, darkness does not rule. When sleep takes you, it is gentle. The graveyard sits just beyond the last cabin, where the cleared earth yields again to forest. Snow piles against crooked crosses, half-burying names carved shallow into wood. Some markers already lean, rotting faster than the bodies beneath. You step there at dusk, when the colony quiets, drawn as if something calls. The air feels heavier here, sharp with resin from the pines, yet threaded with a sourness that no snow can hide. You sink to your knees before one mound, the soil frozen stiff, the wood marker cracked. You don't know whose grave this is. You don't need to. Each is the same story: hunger, cold, silence. You place your hand on the wood, rough, splintering. For a moment you think you feel warmth lingering there. Foolish. Impossible. But you keep your hand there anyway. The whispers come soft, not words at first, just tone-slow hums like wind caught in hollow trees. You lean closer, straining. The sound sharpens, fragments of syllables, breaths that don't belong to the living. You close your eyes, and there it is, voices, dozens, layered, overlapping, some crying, some praying, some laughing faintly, as though amused at your fear. You open your eyes quickly, heart racing. The graveyard looks unchanged. Snow lies still, shadows long, yet the voices continue. You press your palms to your ears, but the whispers slip through bone. Are they the dead, or are they your mind fraying? Echoing hunger in new shapes. Historians might say hallucination. Neurologists might speak of hypothermia's tricks. But here, now, in the raw night, explanation feels thin. The whispers are too clear, too deliberate. You try to stand, but your legs fail. You sit in the snow, breath sharp, body trembling, and then a name rises from the chorus. Your name, spoken plainly, almost gently. Your chest seizes. You whip your head around, scanning the trees, the graves, the dark. No one stands near. Only the rough markers, the snow, the restless shadows. Yet the whisper lingers, curling in your ear. You swallow hard, mouth dry. You whisper back, your voice cracked. What do you want? The answer doesn't come in words. It comes in a feeling, a pull, a weight on your chest, a flood of grief that isn't only yours, the sensation of dozens of lives still tethered here, unwilling to vanish, their stories incomplete, their voices unfed. Tears sting your eyes, unbidden. You hadn't cried for weeks. Hunger dried the tears out of you. But now they come, hot, cutting through the cold. You clutch your knees, rocking slightly, whispering names of those you knew the neighbor accused, the boy who died of fever, the hunters who never returned. You say them into the night, and the whispers soften, like the dead sighing in relief. It hits you then, perhaps they never left. Perhaps survival isn't about outlasting death, but carrying it with you. Perhaps every footstep here is already haunted. Your stomach growl, breaking the trance. The sound feels obscene among the graves, but the hunger is part of the chorus too. You imagine them all of them knowing this same ache. Your body is only one more verse in their song, and as you sit there, listening, something shifts. The fear ebbs, replaced by strange empathy. The dead aren't enemies. They aren't threats. They are companions now, shadows to your shadow. You rise slowly, knees stiff, and turn back toward the cabins. The voices fade but don't vanish. They follow at your shoulder, softer, steadier, like breath beside your own. You realize you'll never walk alone again. That night you can't sleep. The whispers cling to you, curling in the corners of the cabin, slipping between the crackling logs of the fire. Others shift restlessly in their blankets, but no one mentions the sounds. Maybe they hear them too. Maybe everyone does. And silence is the only agreement left among the living. You step outside again before dawn. The moon hangs low, pale as a bone, throwing weak light across the snow. The graveyard waits. You tell yourself you won't go, but your feet choose otherwise. When you kneel at the edge of the mounds, the air thickens. The silence deepens in a way that makes you certain you aren't alone. This time, you don't flinch when the whispers rise. You let them wash over you. Let them fill the hollow spaces inside your chest. The voices aren't only grief. They carry fragments of joy, the sound of a song hummed while chopping wood, the giggle of a child chasing a dog through the mud, the soft murmur of lovers at dusk. These ghosts are not only hunger and frost, they are life, to life interrupted, but still burning faintly like embers under ash. You whisper again, barely audible, I hear you. The wind stirs, brushing snow from the crosses, revealing names that had been hidden. You trace them with a numb finger, feeling the grooves as if touching faces. These were neighbours, friends, rivals. Strangers are yet here, under the same snow. They are one. The longer you stay, the more the fear dulls into something different, a responsibility. The voices don't want vengeance. They want memory, to be carried, not abandoned. And suddenly you understand why their presence feels heavier when the living try to forget them. A shiver racks your body, but not from cold alone. You realise the cruelest fate here is not dying, it's being erased. The thought follows you back into the cabin. You sit by the dim fire, surrounded by the breathing shapes of those still clinging to life. And you know the line between them and the graveyard is thinner than paper. You lean closer to the nearest sleeper, listening to their shallow breaths. For an instant, you can't tell if you're listening to the living or the dead, but perhaps the difference doesn't matter. Perhaps survival is simply learning to walk with both. When dawn finally creeps in, grey and reluctant, you step outside again. The forest stands silent, the graves half hidden by snow, yet the whispers trail after you, softer now, as if content. You realise they will never leave, and maybe that is the lesson the lost are not gone. They are companions, teachers, reminders that your story is part of theirs. You walk among them, always. You glance back once more, and for the briefest moment, you think you see them figures standing between the crosses, pale, watchful, not angry but waiting. You blink, and the graveyard is empty again, but the feeling remains you are not alone. You will never be alone. The shift is so gentle you almost miss it. One heartbeat. You're in the graveyard, kneeling among frozen mounds, and the next, you're blinking at the dim glow of a ceiling fan above your bed. No snow, no whispering voices, just the hum of electricity flowing through wires in the walls. The sheets are soft against your skin, a cocoon you didn't earn. The silence is not silence at all, it's the layered hush of modern life, the refrigerator humming steady in the kitchen, the radiator ticking, a neighbour's dog barking 2 houses over, far off, a siren wails and fades. Each sound is proof you're not alone, even if the world feels lonely. You roll onto your back and stretch. Your muscles ache not from chopping wood or hauling water, but from scrolling too long on your phone, from lying wrong on a pillow too soft to complain about. The absurdity makes you laugh quietly, breath shaking the mattress. You reach for the glass of water on your nightstand, cold, clear, clean. You sip greedily, almost choking. It's the kind of luxury no settler ever knew safety in every swallow. No boiling, no filtering through cloth, no fear of dysentery lurking in the stream. Just tap water, taken for granted, delivered through a maze of pipes like a spell. Your phone blinks awake with a touch. The blue glow paints your face, filling the dark with headlines, emails, and the infinite scroll of other people's lives. It feels ridiculous, holding more information in your hand than the entire colony ever possessed, and still not knowing what to do with yourself at 2 a.m. You smirk, because hunger once meant gnawing leather, boiling bark, begging the forest for roots. Hunger now is whining because your Uber Eats driver is late, or the chips are the wrong flavour. They shared a single candle to push back the dark. You curse when the Wi-Fi drops for 60 seconds. You die in their world. They might die laughing in yours. Outside your window, streetlights glow steady, each one brighter than the flames that saved your ancestors. Light no longer flickers or sputters, it hums, uninterrupted, above asphalt and Starbucks drive-thrus. You picture a settler standing here, dazzled by neon signs advertising pumpkin spice, and you nearly choke on your own grin. Yet not everything has changed. Insomnia still prowls. You toss, you turn. Instead of wolves howling, it's your own mind chewing at you, restless and loud. Instead of graveyard whispers, It's the ghost of notifications pulling your thumb across a screen. The predators are different, but the night is still long. You pull the blanket higher, the warmth immediate, smug in its certainty. No wet wool, no frozen breath seeping into your lungs, just manufactured heat, piped in, humming like a lullaby. And for once you let yourself stop pretending to be strong. You sink deeper, sighing, amused at how survival now means surrendering to comfort. Would you last a winter in their world? Not a chance. But you don't need to. They did it for you. They carried the hunger, the wolves, the cold graveyards. You inherit the ease, the mattress, the running water, the glow of your phone in the small hours. You close your eyes, gratitude and irony twining together like candlelight and shadow. Sleep presses near, and as you drift, you can almost hear them again, the settlers, the lost, not angry, but watchful, as if to say rest, we've already done the hard part. Morning comes, but it's not the pale, grey dawn you've grown used to in the colony. It's sunlight filtered through blinds, dust motes floating lazily in warm air, no frost clinging to your lungs, no wolves pacing the tree line, just the soft percussion of a neighbour's car starting, someone shouting have a good day down the hall. You shuffle to the kitchen, bare feet on tile. The cold is gentle, playful, nothing like the bite of ice through leather boots. You open the fridge and light spills out, dazzling you like a second sunrise. Shelves stacked with cartons, jars, fruit glowing under sterile bulbs. You laugh out loud, remembering the settlers' gnawing bark, and you pull out yogurt, berries, a bottle of orange juice, food you didn't kill, didn't trade for, or didn't pray over, food that simply waits for you, silent and patient. You eat too fast, the sweetness shocking. You imagine offering one spoonful to those shivering graves and feel shame bloom hot across your face. A whole feast, for nothing more than walking across a room. Later, sitting with your coffee, you watch steam curl from the mug. Not a rare sight now, but something your ancestors would have treated like sacred fire. They bled for heat, chopped wood until their hands cracked, huddled 3 bodies to a single ember. You press a button on the kettle and boiling water obeys. You stir, sip, complain if the roast tastes burnt. Luxury measured in bitterness. Your phone buzzes. A text wanna grab Starbucks. You grin at the absurdity. Centuries ago, they crossed an ocean for survival. You cross the street for a latte. Independence is measured now in Wi-Fi signals, not bushels of corn. You scroll further emails, memes, a late-night group chat. The voices of the dead once followed you from graves. Now the living follow you in endless streams of words. Both refuse to let you walk alone. You stretch on the couch, letting cushions cradle you. The settlers built their beds from straw, their blankets from damp wool. You drown in softness, guilty and grateful all at once. You wonder if comfort can also be its own danger, that too much ease makes you restless, like wolves of a different breed. Outside, traffic hums steady, a soundscape of engines and horns. Once, silence stalked you with dread. Now noise does the same. You wonder which would you rather endure, the howl of wolves echoing over frozen cabins, or the constant growl of a city that never sleeps. Both are predators, just wearing different skins. As evening comes, insomnia circles again. The screen lights your face, the glow not unlike that fragile candle flame. You catch yourself staring, realizing the parallel one light fought the dark, shared by trembling hands, the other isolates, each person bathed in their private glow. Survival has shifted, but maybe connection has not. You think of the child leaning on your arm, her breath warming you through the night. You close your eyes, holding that phantom weight, reminding yourself that humans survive not by hoarding comfort, but by sharing it. Even now, maybe especially now when the comfort is endless, but the loneliness sharper than frost. The thought steadies you. You place your phone down, pull the blanket closer, and let the hum of heaters and Wi-Fi take the role of wolves and storms. Different world, same night, same fragile human body hoping to see the morning, and you smile because somehow, against all odds, you will. The first time you touch the paper, you hesitate. It is so fragile it feels alive, edges curled, ink faded into the colour of old bruises. The diary lies in a glass case, sealed away in the climate-controlled quiet of an archive. The hum of the air conditioner replaces the hiss of wind through the cabins. but the effect is strangely the same. The air here feels watched. You lean closer. The handwriting is cramped, jagged, like someone writing fast before the candle burned down. The words blur in places where the ink bled, where the paper drank more than it could hold. You picture the hand behind it, nails cracked, skin torn, fingers stiff with cold. That hand once clenched an axe, or stirred bark into boiling water, or folded around a child's frozen wrist. And now, across centuries, it rests under yours. The first line you make out is simple. Cold is worse than hunger. You murmur it aloud, and your voice startles you in the silence. Cold is worse than hunger. You imagine the man or woman choosing those words carefully, knowing they might be the only ones left. You turn the page gently. There are smears you want to call blood, but are probably candle wax. There are gaps whole days without entries. You know what that means: the body too weak, the hand too numb, the spirit unwilling to waste ink on despair. You breathe shallowly, afraid that your breath itself might erase the past. And still, you read on. Some entries are no longer than a single sentence. Mary is gone. The river is ice. We burn chairs. Each one feels like a blade. The brevity is what kills you. Entire worlds compressed into scraps of ink. Whole lives sealed in shorthand. Historians debate whether these words are accurate, exaggerated, or symbolic. Some say settlers dramatize their misery to justify failure or beg for supplies. But sitting here, reading, you don't hear exaggeration. You hear exhaustion. You hear someone pouring the last of themselves into the page, not to convince an audience, but to avoid vanishing. You glance around the archive. The room is clean, sterile. Fluorescent light hums above you, casting everything in perfect visibility. And yet you feel the same dread as you did in the graveyard. Because the voices are here too, only now they're ink instead of whispers. Your eyes catch on one entry near the end. We share the last candle. You freeze. The words shimmer in the dim light, the exact motif you've been carrying in your head. Did you summon it from them, or did they leave it for you? You picture a group of huddled bodies, one flame guttering, shadows pressing close. That candle still burns in your mind centuries later, bright enough to survive the crossing of oceans and time. Your throat tightens. You close your eyes, and for a moment you're no longer in an archive. You're back in the cabin, shoulders pressed to strangers, the smell of smoke and sweat, the taste of fear and faint relief. The diary isn't a record, it's a door, and you've stepped through. You pull back suddenly, blinking, trying to steady yourself. Visitors shuffle past, unaware. A guard coughs quietly, but your pulse races, because you know the voices haven't stopped. They've only changed their vessel. The ink is whispering now. The page is carrying what the graves could not. You whisper under your breath, barely audible. I hear you. The silence that follows feels like acknowledgement. You turn another page, slower this time, as if your fingertips might bruise the past. The paper is thinner here, stretched almost transparent. Through it, you glimpse the shadow of words on the next sheet, waiting their turn to be spoken. One entry makes you stop. We bury them without words. Your chest tightens. You know that scene. You've lived it in imagination, felt the earth too hard to yield, the silence too heavy to break. Reading it here, written in a spidery scrawl, confirms something you already suspected. The archive doesn't just preserve history, it preserves the ache itself. You lean closer until the glass fogs with your breath. The ink is uneven, as if the quill hesitated mid-stroke. A pause, a tremor. Maybe the writer had to steady their hand against hunger. Maybe they were crying. You'll never know, but the hesitation is there, embedded in the record like a heartbeat. The absurdity dawns on you. This fragile paper, ink bleeding into grain, outlives the flesh it described. The writer's bones are long dissolved into soil, but the smear where their hand slipped on candle wax still exists. You could trace it, feel their clumsiness echo through time. A laugh slips out of you, quiet, ironic, almost bitter. Imagine them writing not for you, but for themselves, never dreaming that centuries later someone would sit in an archive with climate-controlled air and Wi-Fi, reading their despair like bedtime literature. If they had known, would they have written differently, longer, lighter? Or would they have burned the pages rather than risk being remembered this way? You sit back, pressing your palms against your knees. Around you, researchers shuffle papers, tap keyboards, sip coffee from travel mugs. The contrast jars you. Their world is caffeine and deadlines. The diarist's world was wood smoke and frostbite. Yet here you are, sharing a table across centuries, bound by ink. The whispers in the graveyard wanted memory. The diary demands something more responsibility. To carry their words forward, not as curiosities, but as living burdens. You swallow hard. Another line pulls your eyes. We pray for spring. Just that. No elaboration. No detail. A plea left dangling. You whisper it aloud. In the sterile hum of the archive, your voice feels out of place, but the words slip easily, as if they've been waiting for your tongue. Spring came, eventually. Not for them, maybe, but for you. Their prayer was answered in your existence. You sit here breathing, clothed, fed, held safe by walls, because they asked for spring, and somehow, in the long arithmetic of history, it arrived. You close the diary gently. The voices soften but don't vanish. They cling to you as you stand, as you walk past rows of shelves stacked with boxes seek one another coffin, another whisper waiting to be read. The archive is its own graveyard, but one where the dead still speak. At the exit, you glance back once more. For a moment you think you see them, not the settlers themselves, but their shadows moving faintly between the stacks. Leaning over parchment, whispering through paper, you blink. The room is still, but the feeling remains. The archive is not storage, it's survival. And as you step back into the modern light, into the hiss of traffic and the glow of screens, you carry the echo with you. Their words are your burden now, and your lullaby. The first time the lights go out, you freeze. At first you think it's nothing, just a flicker, a hiccup in the grid, but then the refrigerator hum dies, the Wi-Fi blinks dark, and the heater's steady exhale cuts off mid-breath. Silence collapses over the room like a blanket you didn't ask for. It's the kind of silence you thought belonged to history. Your hand fumbles automatically for the phone. The glow erupts too bright in the dark, a false sunrise contained in your palm. You stare at it, relieved and ashamed all at once. This is your candle. This is your fire. Thin, fragile, draining with every tick of the battery. You set it down and light a real candle instead. The match flares, sulphur sharp in your nose, and suddenly the room is older. Shadows tilt and stretch, corners deepen. The flame flickers with each breath you take. Alive, petulant, unreliable. You lean closer, realizing that nothing has changed. The settlers huddled around one last taper. You sit here, guarding your own flame against drafts. Every fire is borrowed. Wax drips onto the table, pooling into soft ridges. You watch it spread like time itself, slow but irreversible. The smell is faintly sweet, faintly acrid. Nothing like the resin and peat smoke they once knew. Still, it lingers in your throat, making you feel like you're back in a cabin where air was more soot than breath. You remember a diary line, "We share the last candle." The words echo now as the wick sputters, guttering in a tiny storm of its own making. You imagine those bodies leaning close, eyes reflecting flame, knowing if it died, the night would swallow them whole. You can feel their breath on your cheek, warm and desperate. The absurdity makes you laugh softly. You binge Netflix and complain when it buffers for 10 seconds. They lost light entirely when one careless gust came through the cracks. Your outage will end in an hour, maybe 2. Theirs lasted seasons. And yet, here you are, pacing the room like they did, hands outstretched toward one fragile flame. Do you remember your first blackout as a child? The way your family gathered in the living room, one lantern set between board games and mugs of lukewarm cocoa. You thought it was an adventure then. Now it feels like rehearsal for something older, primal, carved into bone. Because in the dark, humans always circle the light. The flame bends as if listening to you. You hold your hands close, feeling the heat soak into your palms. It isn't much, but it's enough to remind you survival never meant comfort. It meant tending the fragile, keeping watch, refusing to let the dark have the final word. You glance again at your phone, its screen dark, battery bleeding slowly toward nothing. You realize you're rationing it, the way they rationed wax. One more text, one more refresh, or let it sleep until daylight comes. The decision feels heavier than it should. The shadows leap higher as wax collapses. The flame bows, steadies, bows again. You can almost hear voices in its crackle, telling you the same thing they whispered in ink. Cold is worse than hunger. Fire is life. You lean back, letting the dark surround you. For a moment, you aren't in an apartment but in that endless winter, body pressed to strangers, hope clinging to a wick. You close your eyes, and the absurdity sharpens into clarity. We've never owned fire. We've only borrowed it, prayed over it, shared it. Whether it's a spark on flint, a candle flame, a neon bulb, or the screen in your hand, the bargain is always the same. The candle wavers, then steadies. You smile, half ironic, half grateful. Still here, still burning. The candle sinks lower, flame shrinking as the wick bends into its own pool of wax. You watch it carefully, as if your attention alone could stretch its life. That anxiety feels familiar, though you've never lived through their winters. It's the same dread they felt watching embers fade, knowing the dark had teeth. You picture them crouched in a frozen cabin, eyes hollow but intent, taking turns leaning over a single taper. Children breathing close enough to steal heat with each exhale. Mothers shielding the flame with their hands, as if they could barter skin for light. Fathers feeding scraps of wood, chair legs, even pages torn from books, desperate to stretch one more hour. You feel the ache in your own chest as if you've borrowed it from their ribs. You laugh under your breath, but the sound is sharp. You've raged when the Wi-Fi died, when the microwave clock blinked 12, when your laptop shut down mid-sentence. Their panic was simpler. Crueler a candle's death meant theirs. Fire was not inconvenience. Fire was existence. Outside your window, the city is still glowing. Street lamps stand tall. Neon signs buzz faint. Cars drag their headlights like comets across wet asphalt. Civilization blazing like a perpetual bonfire. But even now, you know it's no guarantee. Grids falter, storms fell lines, batteries drain. You could be sent back to their world in a heartbeat. Historians like to argue whether mastery of fire made us human, or if fire mastered us. You watch wax drip and realize the question isn't academic at all. You're still here, centuries later, still tending a flame, still dependent, still afraid when it flickers. If that's mastery, it looks suspiciously like servitude. The wax hisses faintly, a bubble collapsing. The sound makes you jump. You shake your head at yourself, startled by wax when they listen to wolves. Still, fear doesn't measure itself by scale. It measures by presence. Darkness is the same predator, whether it waits in a forest or a power outage. You lean closer, eyes stinging. The flame paints your knuckles in orange, draws shadows down the walls like ribs of a great beast. The room feels smaller, rounder, almost like a cave. You realize the cave dwellers and you are kin, separated only by time, not need. They pressed torches to walls, painted with firelight. You scroll screens, same motion hand to flame, eyes wide, shadows bending. A thought flickers if the flame dies. You'll light another match, strike another spark. If they failed, the night ended them. That fragility makes you swallow hard. It also makes you grateful. Gratitude and irony, always entwined. You sit back, listening to the quiet. The candle mutters faintly, as if talking in its own language. You imagine the settlers would have understood, nodding along, reading omens in the sway of fire. Now you call it physics, drafts, combustion rates, different words for the same prayers. Have you ever sat through a blackout with someone you love the way silence draws you closer, laughter sharper, confessions easier under shadow? It's as if fire strips away the unnecessary and leaves only the truth. Warmth is better shared. The settlers knew it. You do too. The candle gutters once, twice, then steadies. You find yourself holding your breath. Relief washes you as if you survived something larger than wax. You chuckle, shaking your head. You're ridiculous, and yet you're also human. Every flame is borrowed. Matches, candles, screens, suns, all temporary, all fleeting, all shared. You realise the only fire that lasts is the one carried forward past hand to hand, story to story. You blow gently, the flame leans, bows, then rights itself again. You whisper, not sure to whom, stay. The flame answers by burning on. Your stomach growls, loud enough that in the silence it sounds like another voice. For a second you laugh, embarrassed, though no one's here to hear. But the sound doesn't fade, it echoes, deep, primal, the kind of growl that settlers once mistook for wolves. Except this one comes from inside you. You shift in your chair, hand pressed against your belly. You've never known the true kind of hunger they wrote about, the kind that gnaws bone deep, that strips patience and dignity away. But in that echo you feel a shadow of it, as if their famine carved a groove in human memory and your body still knows the tune. You remember the diary entry, we boiled leather. You shake your head. You once joked about being starving when dinner ran late. They meant it literally. Belts and boots torn apart, fur scraped, boiled into broth bitter enough to blister the tongue. Hunger doesn't care for shame. It demands. The candle flickers beside you. Wax drips slower now, flame steady, almost mocking. Light is easy. Warmth is easy. Food was always the cruelest god. Fire you could steal from a neighbour, bread you could not. Your mind drifts to absurd recipes from desperate times. The Great Depression mayonnaise sandwiches, sugar spread on bread, rice stretched with sawdust, soup so thin you could see the bottom of the pot, and you, tonight, with your fridge humming, jars lined neatly, still feeling restless, unsatisfied. Hunger never ends, it only changes its face. You glance at your phone, battery holding a stubborn 15%. You scroll pictures of food plates steaming, stacks of pancakes, burgers glowing under perfect light. The absurdity makes you laugh again. Centuries ago, they starved in silence. You scroll food when you're full. Both are the same ache, just refracted differently, one of body, one of craving. Outside, a siren cuts through the night. Your chest tightens. Somewhere, someone's hunger has taken a sharper form addiction. Loneliness, gnawing at marrow in ways no bread can heal. Hunger multiplies, not vanishes. You close your eyes, and you're back in the cabin. A bowl of thin cornmeal porridge set in your hands, steam ghosting upward before vanishing into frost. You lift the spoon, liquid thinner than water, grains sticking like sand between your teeth. You swallow anyway. You laugh bitterly because in that moment you feel lucky. Lucky to have anything. The laugh doesn't last, because hunger has no bottom. You set the spoon down, in memory if not in fact, and whisper, we are never full, and the shadows seem to nod. The hunger follows you into dreams. You lie back, eyes half closed, and still the gnawing continues, phantom teeth working from the inside. It doesn't feel like yours alone. It feels inherited, like a scar pressed down through generations. You picture the settlers again, faces gaunt, lips cracked, hands trembling as they scrape bark from trees. The sound of knives against wood echoes like grinding bones. They chewed the inner layers, stringy and bitter, pretending it was bread. A diary line rises up. We ate the fur when the meat was gone. You shiver, not from cold, but from the blunt honesty of it. No euphemism, no comfort, just fur boiled to pulp, swallowed because the body demanded fuel. The absurd detail lingers. You think of your own snacks chips, energy bars, candy bars melting in wrappers, processed, packaged, waiting at arm's reach. You've complained about flavours, about delivery taking too long. Their shadow laughs at you. Hunger doesn't negotiate. You shift and glance at your shelves, cookbooks lined neatly, pages glossy with full-colour photos. You flip on opens absent-mindedly. Recipes for feasts stare back, roasts glistening. Pastries puffed with cream. The irony makes you close it quickly. Books for you are inspiration. For them, a book might have been fuel for the fire. A sound breaks your thought, the low rumble of your own stomach again. It vibrates against the silence, a reminder that even here, even safe, hunger is always waiting. You ask yourself quietly, have you ever really been full? Not just belly full, but soul full? The question hangs, unanswered. Modern hunger wears new masks. Some chase likes and followers, others chase substances, some fill carts with things they'll never use. The craving is the same. Settlers swallowed bark, you scroll endlessly. Both are attempts to quiet the gnawing. Neither really works. You remember one winter night years ago, power out, pantry low. You ate plain rice, salt sprinkled heavy to trick your tongue. You thought it was suffering then. But compared to them it was a banquet. A cruel laughter bubbles up in your throat, dry and sharp. The candle's flame dips low, almost gone. You lean forward, heart quickening, and in that instant you understand why they prayed to fire, why they sang over pots of nothing, why hunger turned into ghost stories. Because when the body starves, imagination feeds, shadows fatten, whispers sharpen. Hunger isn't absence, it's a presence, louder than wolves. The flame writes itself, but the lesson stays. Hunger never ends. It only shifts shape, slips into new disguises. Sometimes it sits in your belly, sometimes it sits in your chest, sometimes it hides in your scrolling thumb. You exhale, a long shuddering breath. For a moment, you feel a strange kinship. Not pity, not superiority, just recognition. The settler's hunger is yours. Different table, different century, same ache. And maybe, you think, that's what keeps us human. Not satisfaction, but the endless, restless reaching for more. The night doesn't end when you blow out the candle. Darkness thickens, but you realize you're not alone. Not in the supernatural sense, not exactly. More in the way silence presses close, weighted, full of breath that isn't yours. You close your eyes, but they don't grant you rest. Behind the lids, faces flicker, hollow cheeks, cracked lips, eyes lit by flames too small to save them. The settlers linger, not as stories, but as neighbours. They lean across centuries, reminding you that hunger, cold, and fear are never truly buried. They wait, patient, until someone listens. Tonight, that someone is you. You sit up, heartbeat thudding in the dark, and whisper, "What do you want me to learn?" The silence doesn't answer in words. Instead, memories rise. The graves dug in frozen ground. The echo of wolves outside. The diary scrawl we share the last candle. Each fragment is a lesson, though none were written for you. They were written because the dead refused to vanish quietly. Your mind draws parallels you didn't invite. Ghosts of the lost colony, families who disappeared without trace, diaries found in ruins, words cracked and fading. Salem's fears of witches' spectres blamed when hunger and illness offered no explanation. Ghosts have always been the shorthand for what humans can't control. And you see clearly now the settlers weren't haunted by spirits. They were haunted by absence of food, of warmth, of safety. The true ghosts were empty bellies and empty chairs. Still, you imagine their whispers circling you. A woman reminding you to keep the fire covered. A man warning not to waste your strength on grudges. A child's voice softer, asking if you'll remember their name. Your throat tightens. You nod in the dark, as if promising strangers that their suffering wasn't for nothing. The absurdity makes you smile crookedly. Who are you to bargain with ghosts? But that's what bedtime history does. Isn't it? It lays the dead down beside you, lets them breathe in your ear, comforts and unsettles until you drift between worlds. The lesson grows clearer. Survival is not victory. Survival is witness. The ghosts don't demand pity. They demand you carry their story, because forgetting is the final death. You open your eyes. The room is the same walls, table, phone asleep, but the air feels fuller, as if the archive followed you home. You realize ghosts don't live in graveyards. They live in repetition. Every time you ration battery, every time you fear silence, every time your belly growls louder than reason, you relive their night. And perhaps that is the strangest comfort. You're never alone in your fear. The ghosts are always teaching. You lean back, staring at the ceiling. It looks blank, but in the half-light you almost see faint marks like smoke stains, or handwriting bled into plaster. Your mind supplies the words we pray for spring. It's absurd, isn't it, to hear a prayer still echo when the ones who spoke it have been dust for centuries? Yet you do. Ghosts don't frighten you now, not like wolves, not like fevers. They comfort you with their persistence, because if their voices linger, so does their resilience. They remind you that people broke, starved, buried their own children, and still, some clung on. That lesson is sharper than any horror story. You remember the superstition settlers carried that strange lights in the woods were spirits watching. You smirk, ironic. Maybe they weren't wrong. Lights always follow as the torch, the candle, the lantern, the bulb. Every flame is a ghost of the last one. Every story retold is a haunting. The more you think, the more the boundary blurs. Were ghosts real, or just the human need to explain what felt unbearable? Salem saw sickness and blamed witches. Colonial diaries saw vanishing neighbours and blamed spirits. Today you see anxiety and call it burnout. Different labels, same haunting. Fear always wears the mask of the age. You exhale slowly. The air feels heavier, but not suffocating. Like a quilt laid over you, stitched from every breath the lost ever took. You imagine the council chamber, names read aloud. You imagine cabins silent at dawn, doors unlatched but never opened again. You imagine graves lined with frost. Each memory is a weight. And yet, you find yourself settling into it. The weight becomes warmth, because ghosts aren't here to drag you into darkness. They're here to keep you awake long enough to remember, and then, paradoxically, to help you sleep. Their lessons whisper you towards stillness. Don't waste flame. Don't waste bread. Don't waste each other. You close your eyes again. This time, instead of faces, you see hands, rough, cracked, calloused, passing a candle, passing a spoon, passing history forward. Your own hands itch with recognition. You flex your fingers as if ready to receive. And in that gesture the haunting shifts. No longer fear, but inheritance. Ghosts fade when ignored. They glow when acknowledged. Tonight they glow quietly, like coals under ash, enough to light your path into sleep. You whisper one last thing, half prayer, half promise it'll carry you, and the silence answers by settling soft against your chest. The ground outside looks ordinary now, just a yard of dirt and frost. But you know better. Every patch of soil is crowded. Beneath the grass, beneath the stones, sleepers rest without words. They don't stir, don't rise, don't clamour, but their silence is loud. You imagine yourself kneeling there, palm flat against the earth. The cold travels up your skin, settling into bone like a reminder this ground remembers more than you do. You press harder, and in the dark of your mind you feel them, not as skeletons, not as bones, but as warmth once spent, as breaths once lost. The settlers dug graves shallow at first, frozen ground too stubborn to yield. Diaries mention axes sparking off ice, spades bending like brittle tin. They buried quickly, without sermons, without hymns, afraid the bodies themselves might freeze into monuments. Frost was not cover, it was cruelty. You picture the labour gloves split, nails torn, breath gasping white clouds while lowering another child into a pit scraped from stone-hard soil. And yet, they slept. Soil closed over them. Time folded like blankets. What began as terror now lies as quiet memory, indistinguishable from the earth itself. You smirk faintly. People talk about rest in peace like it's guaranteed. But there's nothing peaceful about clawing frozen mud. Nothing graceful about laying down the wasted body of someone who starved. The peace only comes later, when memory smooths the edges. That's the trick soil plays. It takes the jagged and makes it round. Takes screams and makes them silence. Your eyes wander the modern street outside. Cars pass. Dogs bark faintly in the distance. Neon flickers. And beneath it all, somewhere under centuries of layers, are the same sleepers. Not the same names, not the same cabins, but the same truth. Soil doesn't discriminate. It gathers all. You think of Roanoke's lost colony, a mystery taught like a riddle. Families vanished, houses empty, theories spin wild massacre, starvation, assimilation. But what if the truth is simpler, crueler? The soil knows. It remembers what humans forget, hiding bones beneath roots. The colony didn't vanish. It just lay down in the dirt, the sleepers tucked into Earth's archive. Your chest tightens at the thought. You realize graves aren't emptiness. They're continuity. Every time you plant a tree, every time you bite into grain, you're tasting the soil where sleepers rest. They're not gone. They're recycled. You laugh dryly, the darkest compost heap of all. But isn't that strangely comforting that the worst hunger, the worst frost, still ended in belonging? Soil doesn't reject, it receives. And in the end, it keeps us better than history books do. You breathe deep. The air smells faintly of dirt even now, though you're indoors. You close your eyes, and for a second, it's not your apartment but that graveyard frozen mounds, makeshift crosses, snow caught in drifts, a raven perches on a post, feathers dark against pale sky. The wind rattles wood like bones knocking, yet the bodies don't complain. They sleep. You open your eyes again, the image lingering, and you realise this is the ghost's final lesson one day you join them. And when you do, soil won't ask how you lived, only if you're ready to rest. The last candle is always smaller than you expect. Stubby, half-burned, wax pooled unevenly, wick bent like a neck straining under weight. It doesn't look heroic. It doesn't look sacred. But when it's the last one, the room stares at it as if it were the sun. You picture the settlers huddled around such a stub, wind groaning at the cabin walls, snow piling against the door, hunger gnawing their insides, every eye locked on that one trembling flame. It doesn't just light the room, it carries their survival, their sanity, their last fragile tether to hope. The absurdity is sharp centuries of human triumph, reduced to wax dripping down a stick. Now, in your room, you light your own candle. Not your last, your drawer holds more, and you could always flip a switch once the power returns. Yet something in you insists on treating it as final. You sit close, watching the flame bend and recover, as if rehearsing resilience. The air grows warm, tinged with melted wax, faint sweetness clinging to your throat. Shadows leap across the walls, stretching long fingers into corners. You think about how many lives have been measured in candles. Monks timing prayers, sailors watching night watches, mothers rocking infants. The flame has always been our clock, our companion, our witness. And when it dies, something more than light goes out. Your mind drifts back to diaries. We share the last candle. No description of fear, no flourish, just a fact. Sharing a stub in a world that wanted them gone. You imagine their faces lit orange, eyes ringed with shadows, hands cupped as if their warmth could steady it. You feel their desperation through the centuries, as if the flame you watch now is the same one, never truly extinguished, only passed along. You lean closer. The wick whispers in tiny crackles, like syllables of a language you've forgotten but still recognise. It tells you stories, half in flame, half in smoke, of soldiers who carried stubs in trenches, of prisoners sketching by faint light, of children who blew them out and whispered wishes into the dark. The last candle never belongs only to the one who burns it. It belongs to every hand that ever shielded it from wind. The thought steadies you, because you realise the last candle isn't really about survival, it's about memory. A flame this small can't hold back wolves or famine, but it can say, simply, "We were here," and that is sometimes enough. You laugh quietly, irony cutting through the stillness. You complain about your phone dying at 20%. They prayed for a candle to last until dawn. You scroll endlessly. They counted drips of wax. The gap between you feels absurd, but also strangely thin, because in the end, both hungers, theirs for fire, yours for connection, are the same flame in different disguises. Your candle gutters suddenly, throwing your heart into your throat. You sit straighter, shielding it with your palm, whispering, "Stay." It steadies again, but your pulse doesn't. You realise how easily fear returns. The dark waits just outside the circle of light, eager, patient. You've never outgrown that dread. No one has. You remember the science flame needs oxygen, wax, wick. Simple, explainable. And yet, when it falters, you don't think of chemistry, you think of loss. Fire may be explainable, but fear isn't. That's what the settlers knew. That's why they wrote prayers instead of formulas. The wax shrinks further, pooling out. The flame bends low, a tired dancer bowing to the crowd. You lean closer, eyes stinging with heat, not wanting to miss the moment. You wonder when the last candle dies. What do? Do you sleep in the dark? Do you weep, or do you finally rest, knowing nothing more can be done? A strange calm steals over you. Because maybe the point isn't to keep it alive forever. Maybe the point is to watch it bravely, to learn its lesson, and to carry it forward in memory. The settler's flame died long ago, yet here you are, still warmed by its echo. That proves something survived. Your hand trembles as you lift the candle, cupping it closer to your chest. You feel heat kiss your skin, smell smoke sharp in your nose. You whisper again unsense words, prayers not to gods but to history itself. It'll remember, it'll carry you. The flame bows once more, then it goes out. Darkness folds in, soft and total. You sit in it, strangely peaceful, because you understand now the last candle never ends in extinction. It ends in inheritance. Every shadow it once held back still glows in you. Every warmth it offered still lingers in your hands. You smile, though no one sees. The lesson is simple, almost childlike. Every flame is borrowed. Every life is borrowed, but none are wasted if carried forward. So you breathe, slow and deep, letting the dark settle. You don't fear it now, because you know, somewhere, another candle waits to be lit, another hand waits to pass it on, and that is enough. The candle burns out, leaving nothing but the faint perfume of smoke curling in the dark. The shadows settle, soft and harmless now, no longer teeth at the edge of your vision, just quiet, just stillness. You sink back into the pillow, listening to your own breath. It feels almost borrowed from another century, like the settlers exhaled once and you've carried it on. The cold that once crept into bones is only a memory here. Your blankets warm, your roof solid, the night outside gentler than theirs ever was. That's what bedtime history does. It lets you walk through a dark past without staying trapped there. You've carried their hunger, their silence, their survival, only to set it down at the edge of your own bed. What haunted them becomes a sleep story for you. Strange, maybe unfair, but comforting all the same. You close your eyes. The ghosts don't press so hard now. They've told their lessons and gone quiet, leaving you with nothing but the hush of your room. The flame is gone, but the warmth lingers, and in that warmth you drift safer, softer, lighter than they ever knew. So rest. Let the story dim with the candle. Let yourself sleep, knowing you've listened, remembered, carried them just long enough. They can rest now, and so can you.